hit the screen. Golden Crush, through the Nick the Gaming King. CJ the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town. Welcome to the Game Lounge. Welcome to the Game Lounge, where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden Crust and CJ in the mix. Dropping heat hotter than a joystick fix. Mr. Roll with Ash Ketchum, the OG squad. Now CJ brings the fire, no facade. Word game sharper than a ninja's blade. Every Sunday we got the arcade made. From Twitch to the globe we taking flight. Brooklyn roots, though we shine worldwide. Press start if you're ready to vibe. The Game Lounge crew keeping it live. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, go to the Game Lounge. Welcome 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 to the Game Lounge. The Sunday night we hit the screen. Golden Crush, through the Nick the Gaming King. CJ the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town. Welcome to the Game Lounge. Welcome to the Game Lounge, where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden Crust and CJ in the mix. Dropping heat hotter than a joystick fix. Mr. Roll with Ash Ketchum, the OG squad. Now CJ brings the fire, no facade. Word game sharper than a ninja's blade. Every Sunday we got the arcade made. From Twitch to the globe we taking flight. Brooklyn roots, though we shine worldwide. Press start if you're ready to vibe. The Game Lounge crew keeping it live. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. hit the screen. Golden Crush through the gaming king. CJ the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town. Welcome to the game lounge. Welcome to the game lounge, where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden Crust and CJ in the mix, dropping heat hotter than a joystick fix. Used to roll with Ash Ketchum, the OG squad. Now CJ brings the fire, no facade. Word game sharper than a ninja's blade. Every Sunday we got the arcade made. From Twitch to the globe we taking flight. Brooklyn roots, though we shine worldwide. Press start if you're ready to vibe. The Game Lounge crew keeping it live. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, go to the game lounge. Welcome to the game lounge. The game lounge. Welcome to the game lounge. The game lounge. Welcome to the game lounge. Yo, the Sunday night we hit the screen. Golden Crush through the gaming king. CJ the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town. Welcome to the game lounge. Welcome to the game lounge, where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden Crust and CJ in the mix, dropping heat hotter than a joystick fix. Used to roll with Ash Ketchum, the OG squad. Now CJ brings the fire, no facade. Word game sharper than a ninja's blade. Every Sunday we got the arcade made. From Twitch to the globe we taking flight. Brooklyn roots, though we shine worldwide. Press start if you're ready to vibe. The Game Lounge crew keeping it live. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw.
Yo, 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 yo. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Game Lounge. I am the co-host, CJ the DJ, everyone's favorite DJ, as y'all all know. And I have the queen of the show with us.
What's up, Chad? It's Melanie Monet. What's going on, Chad?
And we have a special guest here, but our other guest here is my guy Mo.
What up, Mo Black? What up, y'all? How y'all doing?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But as you guys read the title already, we have our guy. He's a special guest, but he was here already, and he was definitely trending on TikTok, as y'all seen. But without further ado, let's kick it right over to my guy GK and my guy Tyree Brewery. Let's get it.
What up?
Yo, I'm so excited for this one.
Let's do it.
I'm
Let's
so
do
excited
it.
for this one. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Game Live. I'm your host, Golden Crush 200, aka Mr. 200. But today, it's about this guy right here. Introduce yourself.
Tyree Brewery, rapper, producer, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff.
Yeah.
Rapper, producer, all that. So you produce your own raps.
Yeah.
But let's kick it off.
Yeah.
What we first start off with,
Uh-huh.
see the shot glasses.
Okay.
Don't act brand new.
All right. But I have to act a little brand new.
First, you gotta
So-
pop the bubbly.
I see it's around the world, so like.
Yeah, exactly. So every shot glass is from somewhere.
All right.
So
all right.
once you pop the bubbly,
All right.
you're gonna see where you
All right.
end
Well,
up.
look, man, I'm a little clumsy with this. All right.
Oh, my man Cliff is in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So what I do is I pour the first shot.
All right.
Go on, do your thing.
I like this one.
Right off the top, you didn't even look around. You just
Nah. This one was calling to me the whole time. You should listen to the ancestors when it's time.
listen
take
to the
spirit.
ancestors.
Yeah. When you're dealing with the
You gotta
spirits.
show the people what you got.
When you're dealing with the spirits, you gotta listen to the ancestors.
That one there is from Japan.
Okay.
That one came straight from Japan. My man Ozza, shout
It's
out to Ozza.
It's a calling.
Went to Japan and he got that
Man,
for us.
It's a calling.
Yeah, I'm already ready. Everybody know I'm the Superman.
Okay.
There's no question. Let's take a shot.
All right. Let's do it.
Professional pour.
All right. Love.
After the first shot, you live your own life.
Okay.
That's you.
All right.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
It's a
Welcome
pleasure.
to the game.
Oh, that's liquor.
How you feel about that right there?
That's liquor.
You gotta let us know how you feel about it. The sound man is back. Okay, so let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Everybody that watches knows the first couple of questions is for everybody.
Uh-huh.
So that's how we figure out if I fucked with you or not.
Okay.
What's the first system you ever got?
Nintendo. It might have been an Atari, honestly, but Nintendo was the first one that I remember. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I was probably getting busy on the Atari, but the Nintendo.
Nintendo?
Yeah.
Okay,
Super
okay.
Mario.
Super Mario.
Going crazy.
You answered my next question.
Okay.
Well, what do you remember playing on there?
Shinobi for sure, because that game made me cry.
How old were you when you got it?
Son, I don't know. I
When
probably
you got the Super Nintendo?
It was a Super Nintendo.
When you got the Nintendo, my bad.
Stop, son.
Yeah.
Freaking the Nintendo. I had to be like 8 or maybe younger, maybe like a little bit younger. Because I remember being in like first grade, and it was like, yo, if you're good in school, you could get the game. And I was beasting for like Double Dragon. I think it was Double Dragon 3 or some shit like that. And I was beasting.
Christmas, birthday?
Nah, just regular, just incentive to go to school and be good.
No, but when did you get it?
Oh, the
When did you get
Nintendo?
the system? When it was like a Christmas, birthday gift?
Bro, I don't even remember. Now it's like, I don't know, bro. I don't know. That it had to be.
Don't remember.
Son, for when you at a certain age, every day just feel like, Christmas or your birthday or some shit.
Oh, so you
Everybody
had a good
look
life.
at you, my little prince.
Yeah.
What do you want today? I'd like some pancakes, mommy.
What's your favorite game
My favorite game now
of all time?
of all
What's
time,
your
Sonic
number
3 with Sonic and Knuckles edition.
I fucks with you.
You know what I mean?
I fucks with you.
Yeah.
I fucks with you.
Yeah.
Here go my favorite question though.
Uh-huh.
I love this question.
All right.
If you could only play one game / franchise,
Final Fantasy 14.
okay. All right.
Oh, my fault. Ask the rest of the question.
Yeah.
Ask the rest of the question.
Somebody's been watching the game live.
You
came prepared.
gotta do your research.
For the rest of your life. That's the only game you can play.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life.
Final Fantasy 14. Forever and ever. Amen.
Why?
Because it's an online game.
Okay.
I could do anything.
There you go.
If I want to play Mahjong, I could play Mahjong for a little bit and then go hunt some demons in a dungeon.
Can you link up with your homies?
Of course.
See?
Ride chocobos across town.
I don't know what that is, but cool.
The little bird.
Right.
You know the bird. Everybody, there's certain things that is in Final Fantasy that's like pop culture.
I don't play Final Fantasy.
It's pop culture though. Like it's bigger than the game.
I skip when they pop up. But I respect it because I always look to see if people gonna pick a game that has online or not.
Okay.
Because I'm always saying if you're gonna play this game for the rest of your life, with no online capabilities, kind of crazy.
What's funny, I'm an introvert. I need to recharge every so often, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm a social butterfly at the same time. So
I understand what that means. Final Fantasy 14. How new or not new is that?
How new, son? This game been out since God knows when. It got to be like 12 years old at this point. I don't even.
Damn, but why that one? They don't got a newer one you'd pick?
Nah, because all right, so before that, the online one was Final Fantasy 11.
Well, you want to know what's crazy? The question also, you still winning because you get to play Final Fantasy franchise.
Yeah.
So as long as you can play the new one if you want.
Yeah.
So you good.
And that works for me.
You good.
That works for me.
You good.
You see?
All right. So.
Yeah. And my favorite Final Fantasy 6, by the way.
That's your favorite?
6.
Why?
Final Fantasy 6.
Why?
It's the best. Like when you look at the whole story. All right, what everybody loves about 7, right? They're like, oh my God, Cloud is such an amazing protagonist, and all of these things that happened. Aerith died, and sorry, spoiler alert for anybody who ain't played Final Fantasy yet. She's dead. But all of them things happened, but it already happened in 6. Like, and there's more characters for you to feel attached to compared to whereas like Cloud is the main guy, right? Like he's the guy. Everybody's cool in 6.
I know Cloud.
Yeah. See? Some things is bigger than the game, but 6, everybody's cool. Like it's just big.
So I heard when you said earlier, like real quick, you said you was gonna pick Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're a big Street Fighter guy.
Not big Street Fighter, but I'm like decent Street Fighter guy.
You remember the first time we played?
Yeah.
I don't think you do.
I do.
Let me just
I
catch
kept
him
that
up.
L.
Hold on, wait.
The whole time. That's what he's trying to allude to. That's what he's trying to allude to. He's like, yeah, you remember the first time we played? Y'all couldn't see it from my angle. He's like, yeah, you remember? It's like Barbara Walters looking into your soul. So when was the first time you were convicted? Right? Like, hold on.
Let me get the question.
Yeah, whatever. Go ahead, ask your question, man. Ask your question. What you saying? What you saying, man? I'll flip this whole shit right now.
I don't think you remember how long ago.
I remember.
You don't.
You was like, yeah, son, I'm nice. Mind you, we're in high school. My man's just like, yo, son, I got Street Fighter. I'm like, yo, I play it too. He's like, son, but I play Street Fighter though, huh? Now, you know when dudes is gaming in school, son, you don't play, son. I'm nice. Mm-hmm. I'm nice. He was nice. He was nice. He's still nice because I think I'm platinum. At this point, I tried to level myself up. So I'm like platinum 3. He got it. What, you diamond? Diamond 4?
Yeah, I've been diamond 5.
That's like right there below master.
I was one fight away at one point.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Just like that. You know? But yeah.
Oh God. All right. Let's get into it. I still got one more question.
So tell me, how you feel about that loss?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You was talking shit though.
No, you know what's crazy?
You was talking shit,
son. I don't know if you remember Derek from high school, son.
Yes.
Funny dude.
Yes.
Son, this nigga, son, again talking shit. Son, Marvel versus Capcom.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, I'm nice. Nah, son, you ain't nice. I'm that guy in my building. Mind you, this nigga Derek be training with IFC Yipes and these fucking.
And you didn't know that.
I know.
You didn't know.
I know.
See, I learned not to talk shit.
Bro, the way how he put the beats to me, son.
I learned not to talk shit.
I looked up, I was like, Jesus, is that you?
You-
Like, son, it was
You got
crazy.
humbled.
Son, he hit me with the meta team too,
But
son.
you want to know what's
Sentinel.
crazy? You left a part of the story out.
What?
Since you want to talk shit.
Since
Since you want to be Mr. You know everything. When you and me play Street Fighter for the first time, right? After you was talking shit, right? Yeah. Somebody else was there.
Who?
Yeah. You want me to say who?
Yeah.
You got whooped in front of your girl.
Oh, fuck her.
Yeah.
I erased all that from my memory, man. That whole shit got burned.
You was there too, nigga.
That's probably why I ain't beat you the first time.
We had a witness, dog. You know what I mean?
That's probably why I ain't
You
beat
was talking hella
Nah,
shit.
she was like, hey, watch how I flip the story. She was like, hey, baby. I was like, babe, I'm gaming right now. I'm trying to. She was like, oh, I love you so much. I was like, yo, get off me. I'm trying to. How you? You know what I mean? It's all right. That's why I lost. That's why I lost.
You left the major part of the story
Simple.
out.
Hey, look, it's easy. It's cool.
Enjoy the laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Ask one
I didn't
question.
even remember she was
I
there.
ain't never had a guest have me. I'm trying to go with the interview.
You
I got questions.
This was a setup. All right, I see what's going on. I see what's
You
happening.
remember what game?
Oh,
though?
you motherfucker!
Oh no, you remember what Street Fighter though? But you don't remember that. I bet you don't remember that.
Wait, what Street Fighter was that, son?
It was. I give you a hint.
It wasn't no Alpha because I wasn't getting Jiggy and Alpha like that.
It was a crossover. Capcom vs. SNK.
Yeah, the first one, right? Or the second one?
Dreamcast.
No, I'm saying the first one or the
I
second
believe it
one.
was like the first one.
Wait, no. It was the one with when you pick the SNK guys, they have like the SNK background. Like they had to be two.
One.
Nah,
It was one.
because the roster was huge.
Yeah.
One doesn't have a big roster. The two has the big roster.
Two has a bigger roster.
Yeah, and it was that. It was
Well,
that.
Either one I won.
It's all right, man.
It's all right.
We can run that back.
You don't want to do
We
that.
can run
Don't
that
do
back.
Don't do
We
that.
can run
Don't
that
say
back.
shit like that live.
We can run that back. Yeah.
They know me.
just tell me what I can and can't say because I'll go all in. Son.
They know me though.
I hate you, nigga. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. Whatever.
We played Street Fighter 6
I don't
already.
care.
You got humbled there too.
That's Street Fighter 6. I don't care.
You got humbled before.
Let's go to Capcom versus SNK. That's that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, come on.
Don't do that.
It is what it is,
I
bro.
played last week.
Mm-hmm.
I played last week.
Sound like the racist. Yeah, some of my best friends are black.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about that, bro. I'm talking about right here, right now. Right here,
No,
right now.
Listen.
Uh-huh.
So I got some questions.
Yeah. Let's focus.
I'm trying to spare this man embarrassment
Uh-huh.
again. And now he wants to do it live.
You gotta do it
It's what's
recorded.
crazy.
You gotta do it recorded.
Now you want to
You
do
be
it
like,
live.
Oh, you got better.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
This not
Yeah.
an anime. This is not an anime.
The freaking inner monologue. Oh
Yeah.
my God. When did he get so much power?
I'm trying to do an interview, people.
Mhm.
So, music.
Yeah.
When did that start?
I've been doing this since God knows when. Since in high school. No lie.
I know, but they don't know.
Yeah. So, shit. At this point, what is that? Like, it gotta be like even longer than that. So here's the thing, right? My grandfather plays guitar. He got my grandmother, may she rest in peace, right? Out there in the streets doing a little, you know what I mean? And bagged up my grandma, then made my dad. My dad is like a musician / poet type deal. And then he met my mom, probably wrote her a poem or something.
Probably.
Right? And then
Because you know niggas that know how to write.
Yeah,
That's
it's
how
like-
they do it.
we want to draw.
Yeah.
Love you like gravy. Cook
Seal
food.
that up.
Yes. You know
So
what I
when
mean?
did you started diving into music as your
I
outlet?
always had a thing for music. So I remember at one point I was listening to like Biggie's it might have been Ready to Die. I forget. Whichever one had the wild skits where every skit he was like fucking.
Mhm.
Yo, I played that in the room This was back in the day when the big speakers with the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The CD changer and all that. So I'm playing that in the room. My mom walked by during one of the skits. She said, "Turn it off." I said, "You right. I was wilding, you know?" But it was like just the connection that I felt from like music in general. You know what I'm saying? And especially Biggie, because I could relate to whatever the hell he was saying. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just, yeah.
So is Biggie your favorite rapper?
No.
Who is your favorite?
Right now, I would say like Kanye West, Tyler the Creator, Childish Gambino. Those are like my favorite. Like, and notice it's a theme with these dudes, right?
I just caught that too.
Everybody that like they rap and they produce and they they kind of just handling their shit. Yeah, I gravitate towards that.
So when did you first start like putting like pen to paper?
I think a teacher gave me a like a assignment in class, write a poem, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get busy with this, and the words just started flying out, and it was like, that was good, Tyree, and I was like, yeah, thanks.
What age group was that?
Yo, again, I had to be like 9 or something like that. Yeah, like I know it sounds like mad cliche, like yeah, it was just always in me ever since I was a baby. I just slept with the music. It's real. Like it's certain things that just connect a bit more. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like for as long as I can remember, like music has been for as long as I can remember, music has been like something that has been like side by side with me through whatever. You know what I'm saying? All my life's moments, there's a soundtrack that was going on, or I could remember certain life events based on the album that was out. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You connect with the music that was going on at the time.
Mm-hmm. No, but it's like specific stuff, like Tweet's album. You know what I'm saying? Right. And it's not like she was super popular, right?
Tweet's album was lit though.
It was.
Yo, listen, it was. That single too.
It was different.
Yo, listen.
It was different.
That's a different era.
Yeah.
You remember that era where creativity was cool?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like being creative is what we wanted to see.
And that's why they say like the 90s is like the golden era of rap. You know what I'm saying?
90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, because it's like
Koza and Gluttony with the raid.
It's like
shout out to Koza and Gluttony with the raid. Welcome in, Raiders.
Yeah.
Introduce our guests again. We got some new Raiders.
Tyree Brewery, all digital platforms. Holla at your boy.
Yes, sir. Spell it for them.
TYREEBREARY. All digital platforms.
All digital platforms. Music out now.
You know what I mean? Music out right now.
I heard.
You listen to the album?
You see me liking everything.
You know what I mean?
You know what I'm saying?
Look, here's my thing. I always try to. I never try to assume that I'm bigger than whatever's going on. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to assume that, oh yeah, I know him or whatever the case, so we interact and he heard it. Like he had to have heard it. Right. Nah. You know what I'm saying?
Right, of course, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like back in the day, and even now, that's what be killing some people. They just assume that whoever is like close to them or within proximity sees everything that they do or hears everything that they do. You know what I'm saying?
So what's your favorite genre of music?
R&B.
R&B?
Yeah.
Why R&B?
R&B is just like the good R&B, because I just seen a conversation about modern R&B, like and no disrespect to SZA, but like SZA, that type of like they talking about don't love these niggas, that type of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, I'm talking about the R&B where you in the rain, you spinning around, telling your girl, yeah,
air.
I miss you. You know what I mean? That type of shit, like that R&B, like substance. Like a different kind of substance. Because again, no disrespect to SZA, it's not like she's not saying nothing in them songs. She's saying some stuff, but it's like not what makes me like the genre. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I want to know is,
yeah,
when you first decided to write something, what was the motivation for that? Like, how you feeling?
Yo, you know what's crazy? I can remember
appreciate you.
I can remember the first rap that I wrote, and it was on the Recognized beat. My uncle worked at like Def Jam or some shit like that, and he would bring home like these singles. That's back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd bring home these singles and to recognize he had the locks and he had
Wax.
yeah. So mind you, just because I said Def Jam, I know there's probably some historian like the locks weren't even on Def Jam. Like all of these record labels were like connected in some way. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So stuff that comes through like Def Jam or wherever the case will always land on the desk of somewhere else. And he would happen to have these CDs. So he brought home that locks demo or whatever it was. And I sat there and I listened to the beat for Recognize, and I'm like, ooh. And I started writing a rhyme. I can't remember what the rhyme was, but you know, it was like, and I wrote a whole rhyme, whole song to it. And that was what really made me like lock in from that point.
Right. So what's
Yeah.
the thought process when making music?
Honestly, my thing is to be true to whatever is going on with me.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Or like stuff that I could at least relate to. You know?
So you write what you can relate to.
Yeah, stuff that I could relate. So, and the thing that's crazy, I got mad drug songs too. So it ain't even like I'm pumping heavy drugs like that.
But you share stuff that you can relate.
Yeah,
to.
but it's stuff that like you know, it's either I grew up around it or like
It's different versions of it.
yeah.
You got the guy doing it, selling it,
Right,
buying it,
right.
around the people
And then
doing it, selling it, and buying it.
No,
You know what I'm saying?
no lie. It's like it's a weird thing that nobody really talks about, right? Because everybody talk about the drug dealers and the customers, right? There's
Mhm.
always that, but they never talk about the kids of the drug dealers or the kids of the customers,
Or the
right?
rest of the regular people that's
Like this,
surrounded in that
that
environment.
experience is a unique experience in
Right.
itself, and
Right.
it's an experience that all right. If everybody's selling drugs, then they have kids, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of people that could relate to. I'm experiencing life as the kid of someone who's pushing, right?
Right.
Or there's a lot of people doing the drugs, right? There's a lot of people that could relate to. I'm the kid of someone using. You know
Right,
what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So it's really
It's like growing up with a parent that's a drug lord.
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Your daddy owned these 3 blocks is my pops.
Exactly.
That's not a regular life.
It's not.
It's not a regular life.
It's a unique experience, but when you start talking about it, and especially if you talk about it to someone who also had that experience, they're like,
I
yeah.
get it. Yeah.
yeah,
I get it. I understand it.
you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's one of those.
It's like when people say when, you know what I'm saying, you go out of you end up somewhere that's different from where you're from.
Yeah.
Then you see somebody else, you're just like, oh shit, you look like me. You get it.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
We both know we fish out of water right now.
It's
You know? So you lock in. You feel me? Like
Yep.
you feel you lock in with that motherfucker. Like,
mhm.
cause we both understand.
Right. Yeah, it's like, all right, cool, this is familiar.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So yeah.
And if
Yeah.
shit go down,
Right.
you the only nigga out here that's gonna help.
Right.
You feel me?
Until you say, yo, you from New York? And they like, yeah, I'm from New York. And it's
Yeah,
like,
here we go.
where you from?
Yep.
No offense to Griselda neither, but Buffalo.
Yeah.
Nigga, that ain't New York. That's not the New York I'm talking
that's
about.
not New York City.
Right, you're not from the towns. Like that's not the
New
city.
York City.
So yeah.
With them, the cats with the Timbs with the lace real tight.
Yeah. But yo, son, no, man. Let me not even, man, because I got culture shocked a lot just by moving around the state. Right, just
Right.
certain things that you kind of used to seeing in the city. When you move out of state, it's like, oh, so y'all,
It's real different.
yeah.
It's real different.
Like, oh, okay, you know, and not for nothing, like, especially being from the city, when you move out the city, people are a little bit friendlier. They're a little
Well,
bit.
they're not as busy.
I want y'all to see my whole mind just blew up right there, because it makes sense.
You have time to be
They're
friendly.
not as busy.
You have time to be friendlier.
Yeah, so they have time to stop and, hey, pal,
There
how's
you
your
go.
day?
There you go.
Yeah.
It just kind of society adapts different ways of etiquette. You got more time, less time, more busy, less busy.
I like that.
It's hustling and bustling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I feel like New York is crazy, and I always tell this one story. There was this dude playing, how I understand the story, there was this dude playing in the subway. You know how they have like the subway performers?
Right.
Playing his violin or whatever the hell he was playing in the subway. Everybody skipping him, passing him, whatever. Mind you, the same dude had a sold out show in Carnegie Hall the same night with tickets going for like hundreds up to thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And when they got the chance to see him for free
For
in
free.
the subway,
Right there.
they skipped him.
They skipped them.
Everybody busy.
Because everybody busy.
Yeah.
You know, they say, studies say, you got a better chance of getting help in places where there's not a lot of people. You would think, then the next person that sees me is probably a half an hour, 20 minutes, 45 minutes away. Because this areas are, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Then you do getting help in a dense city where somebody's walking past you every second.
I like that you brought that up because...
Wait, hold on. They say, because the mentality of the people is, there's so much of us, I could have kept somebody else to get them.
Right.
Well, when you're somewhere else,
I'm the only one that's here to do
I
this.
know that the next person coming is probably another hour or so away. So I'm going to help you now.
Okay.
Because you fucked up now.
Yeah.
It's just mentality of the people.
I don't know how factual this is, but they said New York is the #1 place to cry.
What did that even mean?
Like, you can cry in the middle of Times Square and no one will give
Nobody give a fuck.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like, just bawl, like, be broken down and no one will stop.
But imagine, even you and me, just growing up in Brooklyn and shit. Imagine how much time we just walked past a crazy motherfucker.
Yeah.
We've done that. I know for sure everybody at Studio 200 has done that. It's crazy. I'll tell you a story. I was going to work one day.
Yeah.
Train was crowded. And I was standing up. This was just a couple months ago. And there was a young lady right in front of me. Crowded.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you know you're holding on to the thing.
Right.
So the train had got to the stop and the door opened, but it was hot. It was hot. It was nothing but hot air coming in.
Yeah.
And the AC wasn't keeping up with the bunch of niggas that was in there. So I felt shorty like drop on my chest.
Yeah.
So I'm looking down. And mind y'all, chat, I'm gonna keep it a buck since I get to tell the story. The first thing I'm thinking in my head is, I'm 40. This is a little girl. What's going on?
Yeah.
I don't want to touch you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I look down. I'm like, you good? Then I feel her weight get heavier.
Oh.
I said, nah, you not good.
She fainted or something.
Yep. So I grabbed her, took her off the train.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you exactly what we talking about is what happened. I'm fanning her and shit. You know, I'm somewhat used to this based on past experience. So I already called this, that, and the third, yada, yada, right? They coming, I'm fanning shorty, she dehydrated, all that shit, right?
Yeah.
The next train pull up. The door open. It's 2 cops looking at me. I'm thinking, hey.
They about to come in.
Public servant.
Right.
Distress. Right. I'm over here fanning her. Clearly, this is not a regular scene.
Right.
The cop looks at me. Watch this. The cop looks at me and say, hey, is everything all right? No. And I told him, no. I said, she passed out. This is that. He said, do you know her? No. I said, I'm a stranger. I'm just helping. Okay, cool. Door closed, gone. I was just like, yo, what the fuck just happened?
He was like, well, I'm about to clock out. So
I was like, yo, what the fuck? 2 men. This is a little girl, bro. I just told you that I don't know her. I made it clear that I'm a stranger. This little girl passed out. Doom, gone.
Yeah, they probably got it on their walk.
Bro,
somebody else handling that?
You got the whole badge on and all that, bro. But it goes to what we were saying. Fuck it. We gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it? We out.
All right.
Bro.
Good job, man.
Just imagine if I wasn't a nice person. Put it in perspective.
Right.
Put it in perspective now.
Right.
That's the point I'm trying to make. Let's just say if I was
dastardly damn.
That type of different type of nigga.
Yeah.
That's not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I was glad she fell on me, because I know with me you safe.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying? 2 officers gone, bro.
Son, that's it. Look.
Gone, bro. You got the fit on, bro.
Yo.
You're not a regular nigga. You got the fit on. You got the badge and all that. You supposed to say, let me get off and at least wait till the paramedics come and all that.
See, but that's the thing too, right? You got to remember, like, a lot of the first responders, they just regular dudes doing this particular extraordinary job, right? So it's, at the end of the day, like, they come to work, they going through whatever they going through at home, or maybe they want to get home, they had a rough day, whatever the case. I'm not making any excuses for them, but just because they doing that job doesn't mean that they're, like,
a good person.
Or, like, always gonna be a superhero. You know what I'm saying?
I just look at it as, you know what I'm saying, we all grown men.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? And step outside, that is me.
Yeah.
It's a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly not in a good condition.
Mm-hmm.
And a grown man who just verbally told you
that he don't know this little girl. Right.
You don't need no more than that to say, let me step in and
let me see what's going on.
Protect the situation.
Right.
You don't need no more than that, nigga.
Yo, but not for nothing, son. I ain't gonna hold you. I just seen this thing about a dude who, I don't want to misquote the story, son. I think either he applied for the police department wherever he was at. I think he got denied the first time, applied again, got picked up, and ended up being like the biggest rapist that anyone has ever seen. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
So it's like, all right, cool. This is, again, back to what I was saying, right? Like, just because they wear the suit doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be superheroes to the situation.
But here go my angle again. And we're going to move on after this. We got to get back on it. Let's say it was you that she passed out on.
Yeah.
And I don't know you.
Yeah.
And I'm not a cop.
Right.
And I just happen to be in the same area as you and see the situation.
Right.
And I was like, yo, she good?
Yeah.
And you like, nah, fam, like
something crazy.
I'm like, yo, what, you like her uncle or something?
Fentanyl.
Like her uncle or something?
Yeah.
Nah, I'm just some nigga that was on the train.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Nigga, immediately I'm gonna start.
We both helping her.
Did you call the cops yet?
Yeah.
Did you do this yet?
Right.
They on the way?
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait with you.
I'll be like, yo, I gotta get on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? If that was me, I'd be like, I'm gonna wait with you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't gotta be a cop. We can move on.
I mean,
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Once you start thinking about certain things, man, it's like the world we live
in. So you got a new album out?
Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah, I like that.
How you like that?
I was about to have one I just pray for all the kids, you know what I'm saying?
So you got a new album out?
Yeah.
Take us through the process of that. How long has it been since you've been, this album is fresh right now.
Right.
How long did it take to get to here? What was your last album? What was the gap in between?
Yo, I don't even know. I would have to check like freaking Apple Music or something. That's my favorite. But like 2 years?
2 years?
2 years between this album and the last one?
About a year and a half.
Yeah, so
CPT and this.
Yeah. I try not to oversaturate, right? But also try not to be like lazy with what I'm doing, right? Because it's like, all right, cool, in the same speed and full transparency. It's not like I'm some big time super celebrity artist that's like bringing in super income from this, right? Get a couple dollars here and there, but it's nothing like, this is it.
Luke, who you're talking to?
Yeah. I'm just.
You think the host is rich?
No, but I'm saying.
No, I'm saying I understand.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You gotta
So in the midst of that, I'm living life and
and doing this.
Yeah,
because you love it.
Right. It's passion for me.
Right.
Like this is fueled strictly by passion.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So where did the inspiration for this album come from?
This album?
So I'm gonna assume every album was a different inspiration.
So back to what you asked me in the beginning, right? It's more like stuff that I could relate to, right? This particular album, I did try to go with a theme, kinda, right? So there was, like the 90s and like. Actually, the name of this album wasn't even supposed to be what it is. If you let me tell it, I was gonna name it like a year, like 1996 or you know what I'm saying, like something.
Right.
And I was like, if you let me tell it, because I got like story songs in there, and it's pretty much just me talking about shit that I know.
But I kind of like that title.
Yeah, if you let me tell it.
If you let me tell it.
Yeah. Because I mean, look, when you listen to it, right, it's me talking shit. Right,
you telling it. That's what it is.
Me literally telling it. Like, I'm nice. I'm good at rap. I'm good at this. This is what I do. Or here's my life. Or look at this. Take a look at this thing happening here. It's
right.
Like,
so I got a big question.
Yeah.
So being that, we passed our teens and 20s.
Right.
And you're doing it for the love of the game.
Right.
But being at this age, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where we at with it right now.
Right.
What do you want out of the music?
Hold up,
creation?
I gotta do a disclaimer. So look, I'm not being shady, but my brother's out there lying to a girl about his age somewhere. So, right? They know he's honest about me being his younger brother, but I don't say my age because then if I say my age, they're gonna look at him like
you ruined the.
that's how old you are. That's how old he is. So look, I'm sorry, right? I blew it up that he's somewhere in the range, right? But I'm not a right. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
So going forward,
yeah.
What are you looking to acquire from continuation of making music?
Oh, no lie, and I don't want to sound cheesy, but even with me thinking about saying it, is the dudes who do say things like this, it really be coming from the heart, right? Like it's something that I love. So let's say I do this and I get nothing from it. Like, like it just my mom, like, do that little dance you do.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, I like that. I like the process. I like everything about music. I love freaking coming up with an idea or having the idea in my head and then actually putting it to reality. That's like crazy to me. And it's like, yo, I'm not gonna lie, I don't even want to juice my shit up, right? But I've been putting some shit together and I'm like, this didn't exist before I made it.
That's facts.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I just, all right, now it's all digital and all these apps and stuff. But I opened up, or I sat in front of this beat machine and nothing was happening before I sat here.
And created something.
And I created this masterpiece, right? Like, this is similar.
That's powerful.
This is modern day, like, Mozart type shit. Facts. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. But, yeah. So, yeah, for me, it's really about the passion of it. Like, it's really the love. And I'm trying to better myself, even from the beginning. Like, I make it a point with my whole discography, right? If you, like, anyone who's looking me up, if you go Tyree Burry on all digital platforms, from the beginning, like, what album was that? Vibes, right? So I did Vibes on my phone. Just like everything. I had an Apple freaking headset recording my vocals. Still, I make beats on the phone too, but I was making all the beats on the phone, everything. I wasn't even worried about like EQ and nothing. So it just sounds like I recorded it on the phone.
You said EQ like I was just supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, like I wasn't worried about like the levels, like how everything sounded. I wasn't worried about none of that.
Oh, the EQ guy.
Yeah. So it sounds like I recorded it in a room, like just talking to my phone, like the beats playing, but I'm just screaming back at the phone some bars, you know what I'm saying?
I'm just screaming back at the phone.
and it's picking up everything, you know what I'm saying? So it's like that type of deal, you know?
So you've been at it for a while.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, each album, I progressively learn a bit more about vocal recording and, I try to incorporate that into the music. So ultimately, I would like for when everything is said and done, you can't tell what I'm doing from what somebody who's like super famous is doing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we do have something to let the people know that you are performing for us tonight.
Yeah. I got a couple songs I'm gonna do. It was kind of.
And fuck that. And fuck all that smooth nigga shit. It was kind of like, fuck all that, right?
Yeah.
You know my jam.
Yeah, son. No lie. Like, it makes sense for me to put that in the set list. And I put it in there just because, right? Just because. But I'm like, I could have went a whole different way if I didn't have to put this part.
I'm just saying.
It's all right. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
I just want to see.
I just had one request.
This kind of goes into what I'm saying, right? I want people to enjoy the music, and I'm really glad that you rock with that song.
I rock with a few songs.
But that song, nigga say, yo, son.
Yeah.
That shit right there, son.
You gotta play that.
I need that.
You gotta play that.
I'm like, yeah, all right.
So I'm gonna need you to take one more shot. You sitting here like you don't know what time it is.
Be like, yeah, we got Tyree locked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Coming shortly, people. My man Tyree Berry is gonna perform for us. No, you gotta pick another one.
Oh, I gotta pick another one.
What are you doing?
All right, hold up.
Table turn, dog. We fancy.
Oh, okay, now it makes sense. Yo, whole time out. Wait a minute.
You know what I mean?
Would you look at this?
Would you look at this?
What?
They didn't have it back in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm like, yo,
They
let
didn't
me
have
stop.
this-
Let me
they didn't
stop
have the-
shaking
they
the
didn't have-
table.
They didn't have these in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Damn, now I don't even. Now I see why you was feeling some type of way about me just picking that
Right
one
was
cut.
right in front of you.
He was like, yo, you ain't even gonna show them his spin?
Yeah.
Hold up, son. Mm-hmm. All right, this one. Bang.
Okay. Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Show the people.
What's the deal?
I'm gonna tell you why that's a good one. The guy who rated us just now,
Mm-hmm.
Gluttony,
Yeah.
he sent that to us.
Oh.
And he sent that to me for my birthday episode.
Oh.
And that's real gold
Okay.
at the bottom. You see the bottom right there?
If times ever get hard, this cup going first.
And that was shipped in the UK.
Okay.
Hey, listen.
All right,
I
then.
got
mate.
many names. Golden Press 200.
Uh-huh.
Mr. 200.
Okay.
Mr. Worldwide.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
This nigga might be the rapper of the
Yeah.
conversation. I ain't gonna hold you.
I'm gonna need you to take a shot.
Be like, yeah, I'm just Tyree, motherfucker. Like, let's go. See, slightly professional, Paul.
Slightly professional.
Slightly.
I'm better, but
You know what I mean?
take a shot.
Wait, hold up. So I'm just taking this shot by myself?
I was
son?
over here emptying the
I
clip
don't
by
wanna hear
myself.
None of that.
I was
bro.
over here emptying the clip by
Alright.
myself.
You see how you vibing right now?
It's your turn.
Mm-hmm. He trying to get the blooper reels. That's what he's doing, bro.
Okay. So shortly,
Yeah.
I got the message from CJ.
Oh,
They got the studio set up for you.
that's a liquor.
So we got to get ready to head on down to the other side of the studio.
Yeah.
So, but before I go,
Mm-hmm.
before we go,
Yeah.
I just want to know Marvel or DC. Or we gonna bring it right back to the
Marvel.
bullshit. What are you doing?
Marvel, don't talk to me,
We
bro.
connected.
Stop. Yo, you
Wait a
lucky I
minute.
even
Hold
took
on.
this interview
Yeah.
after that Rick and Morty shit, bro. like, I went home, asked Mo to call right. I'm like, fuck them niggas, man. Gonna pick Inuyasha over fucking Rick?
Just say you don't understand Rick and Morty.
Like, what's happening here, bro? Inuyasha? And
Wait a
yo,
minute.
everybody in the comments too, all y'all freaking dudes in the Inuyasha. I'm like, son, this nigga just got an army of fucking special ed motherfuckers.
And you
son.
watch your fan.
Shit is crazy, son.
So you going Marvel over DC?
Inuyasha, bro. Yo, Tato, what up, man? We out here, man.
So you sticking to that? You sticking to
I'm
this?
talking to the chat.
You
now,
still-
man. What's going on? Yeah, Marvel all day, Big Brooklyn. I see you. It's only right.
Big Brooklyn,
It's
stop
only
it.
right.
Big Brooklyn,
It's
stop
only right.
it. Big Brooklyn,
It's only
stop
right.
it.
This dude talking
You
about.
don't come here and
He look-
divide
yo,
me and my chat.
Y'all not seeing the way how he looks at me. He's like, so you really going with Marvel?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? what do you mean?
So who's your favorite superhero?
Might be Nightcrawler.
Interesting. That's a very interesting choice.
Might be Nightcrawler. Do it to them. Do it to them. Yeah. Look at them.
That's a very. I'm not mad.
Tell
Nightcrawler is different.
That's right.
Nightcrawler?
What else?
That's your favorite superhero, Nightcrawler?
Nightcrawler.
Batman or Superman?
Batman with prep time.
We ain't saying
Big
no.
B's.
Nigga.
Hold on.
Big
I ain't
B's.
talking about no prep time.
Batman with or without
That's
prep
not what I
time over
asked you.
Superman.
Batman or Superman?
Son, you
Who
know
you prefer?
You know what's crazy? Just seeing that last Superman movie, I just realized that the glasses was hypnosis, son.
Okay, so your knowledge is low.
I'm like, how the hell did people not know, but they were hypnotized the whole time?
That's one version. That's old though. That's
All
not
right,
new.
but yeah, okay. All
All
right.
right.
See, I wasn't following that DC garbage.
Okay.
Wow.
So we're gonna go to the other side of the studio. Just Kid, shut up. I'm about to fight the whole chat right now.
Dude talking about.
So
I'm
I'm
got
gonna go check.
kryptonite in his pocket.
Shut up. All right, so we're getting ready to kick off this performance. What we got coming up next.
All right.
And so we're gonna take a quick break.
Yeah.
So get you to the other side of the studio.
Yeah.
So before we go,
Uh-huh.
let the people know where they can find your music, where they can check you out. All
Yo, I'm on all digital music platforms, anywhere you like to listen to music, except for the ones where I have to upload it myself because I'm lazy. I'm joking. But Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, Tyreeberry, TYREEBREARY, on all of those digital platforms, even the random ones, Pandora, whatever. Like anywhere you listen to music, I'm there.
What's the name of your album?
If you let me tell it out now, look, I think the album's fire.
So what I'm hearing is right here at the Game Lounge, we got a little sneak peek exclusive.
No lie, this
performance.
might be my first. I think this is my first performance.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy, chat.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
This is your first performance
Yeah.
right here at the Game Lounge.
Yeah.
It's a fucking real one.
You know what I mean?
Appreciate you, my
Nah, I
brother.
appreciate you.
Real talk. I've known you a long time,
Yeah,
brother.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
If I would have known you had these heretic ass views,
Nah, don't do that.
all right,
Don't do that.
cool,
Don't
cool.
do that.
We focus.
You don't,
You remember the first time we played?
yeah, you know what I'm
Remember
saying?
the first time we
I got
played
many
Street Fighter?
victories.
Uh-huh.
I got many victories.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that other victory that I got?
Son, you know what? Let's
Yeah.
let's commercial cut. Give me my drink, man.
CJ, you ready to go to cut? All right, chat. We'll be right back. We're gonna set up so this guy right here can perform for us. Next time we open up scene, it'll be my man right here ready for performance.
They
You
gonna
ready?
cut the camera or you hear me flipping the table. Rick! Fuck it out!
Yep, you're clipping that. Clipping that. That's the one I was waiting on.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Trying to set me up. I see what's happening.
I know who did that.
Yo, the Sunday night we hit the screen. Golden Crush through the like the gaming king. CJ the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town. Welcome to the Game Lounge. Welcome to the Game Lounge. Where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden Crust and CJ in the mix. Dropping heat hotter than a joystick fix. Mr. Roller Dash Ketchum, the OG squad. Now CJ brings the fire, no facade. Word game sharper than a ninja's blade. Every Sunday we got the arcade made. From Twitch to the globe we taking flight. Brooklyn roots, but we shine worldwide. Press start if you're ready to vibe. The Game Lounge crew keeping it live. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, don't Yo, the Sunday night we hit the screen. Golden Crush, Go Thunder, the gaming king. CJ, the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town. Welcome to the Game Lounge. Welcome to the Game Lounge, where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden Crust and CJ in the mix. Dropping heat hotter than a joystick fix. Mr. Roll with Ash Ketchum, the OG squad. Now CJ brings the fire, no facade. Word game sharper than a ninja's blade. Every Sunday we got the arcade made. From Twitch to the globe we taking flight. Brooklyn roots, though we shine worldwide. Press start if you're ready to vibe. The Game Lounge crew keeping it live. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, don't to the Game Lounge. Welcome to the Game Lounge. The Game Lounge. Welcome to 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 the Game Lounge. Yo, the Sunday night we hit the screen. Golden Crush, Go Thunder, the gaming king. CJ, the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town. Welcome to the Game Lounge. Welcome to the Game Lounge, where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden Crust and CJ in the mix. Dropping heat hotter than a joystick fix. Mr. Roll Ketchum, the OG squad. Now CJ brings the fire, no facade. Word game sharper than a ninja's blade. Every Sunday we got the arcade made. From Twitch to the globe we taking flight. Brooklyn roots, though we shine worldwide. Press start if you're ready to vibe. The Game Lounge crew keeping it live. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, don't to the
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we all came here for. The man of the hour. And again, your boy Golden Crush 200. I would like to say thank you for allowing the Game Lounge to be your first performance.
Yeah.
This is big for the both of us.
Yeah.
This is big for the both of us. And I know you're going to kill it.
I will hope so. I hope so.
I appreciate you for being here again.
I'm happy to be here.
So, without further ado, again, our guest performer of the evening, Tyree Brary.
Yeah. All digital platforms.
Holla at him. And I'm going to step off. And you cue the sound man when you're ready.
All right.
He going to kill it, y'all. Do your thing.
I love you, Mom. All right, I'm ready.
Right? You really think this rap shit is getting you where you need to be? You really think it's all about that? Yo, fuck you, Tyree. Honestly, fuck you.
Brooklyn. Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. It's the return of the rippity rap nigga. I casually slap niggas. Spat on every bar, don't give me no dab nigga. I'm Superman in his prime. I'm saying I'm that nigga. These rappers too animated. They saying ain't transcendent. I'm bigger nigga beating on the block. Tell your bitch not to look at me. Your panties coming off. I'm the shit. All the fly women buzzing in my zone. Hit the gram with it. Tag me in your phone. Now it's lit. Tell a bitch get off me. I get money from the gram like I'm pushing that Halsey. I'm a Brooklyn nigga but I'm from the other side. Flatbush with the yardies. Life of the party. Hit me with Nosby. God flow, you never gonna cross me. Look what you started, asshole. I barely depart shit. Niggas is targets. Brains gone at night with the zombies. And moving to the ends. I hit 9 million on the waist. 9 million in your face. I hit the 9 million. I hit the move it to the ends. I need 100 bands. 9 million. 9 million. 9 million. I'm getting rap money. I breathe in the track money, pack money. Niggas ain't getting bread, so they lag money. Mad bummy. I be eating and leaving them no crummies. Too funny. I be laughing at niggas who hate on me. Bigger nigga beating on the block. Tell your bitch when I said it first time, I'm the shit. Niggas hating outside, they won't ever make it in. I be on the inside with the chopper trying to win. Come again. I'm big dog on the block. I'm the man. Understand. These niggas don't want war, so they plot and they plan why they hating on me. Niggas mad cause they women lying naked on me. I'm in my bag and these niggas trying to take it from me. When they on empty tummy. Plus I'm not a dummy, run my money. Move it to the M's, I need 100 bands. 9 million on the waist, I hit the money dance. 9 million in your face, I hit the money dance. 9 million in the bank, I hit the money dance. Move it to the M's, I need 100 bands. 9 million on the waist, I hit the money dance. 9 million in your face, I hit the money dance. 9 million in the bank, I hit the, I'm getting. Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. Yo. Check me out right here, yo. Yeah. You could put me in the Hall of Fame for Brooklyn niggas. I bust rhymes, get these bitches wet. I'm that nigga plus a little more. Daddy's Kane got us in the door. Big spender, lick a shot like bartender. They brains blue, Avatar, I'm airbending. This Howard Hughes, money, power, respect measures. I got the juice, and the squeeze is quite deafening. The rap reverend, rap doctor. I bring it back like rap snacks, this Big Papa. And matter of fact, niggas is whack, I make them obsolete. I'm too elite with rhymes, I'm just a monster. What? I'm nice, like nice. Watch. Top shot to the Dundada. I smoke Robert. This is Mike Jack in the red jacket.
Niggas lack swagger, I'm back grabbing the wheel on them. Raps Mick Jagger, the Stones rolling for real on them. Think it was a visa, how I peeled on them. Shorty got a visa, then she peeled on them. And my nigga Nigel got them pills on them. Derek got that coke, he went for real on them. I tell you. I'm nice. Like, listen. Come on. Top shot to the Dun Dada. I smoke grabber. This is Mike Jack in the red jacket. Niggas lack swagger. I'm back grabbing the wheel on them. Rats Mick Jagger. The Stones rolling for real on them. Think it was a visa, how I peeled on them. Shorty got a visa, then she peeled on them. And my nigga Nigel got them pills on them. Derek got that coke, he went for real on them. Whole praise due to the Most High. If they say I touch a million, make sure that it's multi. If they put me in the story, make sure I'm the bad guy. Cause this hero is anti, nigga. Put me in the Brooklyn top 5, nigga. Women think I'm cute on worldwide, nigga. If I go to shoot, somebody dies, nigga. If I aim at you, don't ask why, nigga. Small fling to a lit nigga, I'll be burning up. Shine bright on a bitch nigga, I'ma turn it up. Smoke loud, then eat dinner when my order's up. Say a prayer before I kill it, huh? Coming from a city full of winners, huh? Summertime is mine, you get the winner, huh? Cut the 4 seasons, eating dinner, huh? Telling niggas this ain't for beginners, yeah, I know. All that hate up in your heart, just let it go. This a bad man, my thing. Niggas need to know I'm a funny guy, laughing. This ain't for the niggas head top, leave it on the roads. One shot to now your head back, turn you in a ghost. Niggas just to see if you can float. Niggas feeling like a Steph until I cover up the goat. If your bitch looking at me, then I'm dunging on. Dunging on, true, yeah. Hey, yo, dunging on, true, yeah. Hey, yo, dunging on, dunging on. I'm trying to tell you something. I'm a little crazy with it. Just cause you don't know me don't mean I'm not that guy. You under the ass with the hate, they never last. I'll be boxing niggas out with the style like Everlast. They gon' judge me from the box like a trial. Imagine that. We ain't peers, we ain't kinfolk, I mean it. Couple songs with my cousin and we freaked it. Mad vivid cause I seen it. Manifested, I'm the biggest bitch, I dreamed it. Yo. Yeah. Let me talk. I'm unlucky in love, so I turned to therapy to make a better me. It's funny how you meant the world to me, but now you dead to me. My niggas locking in to turn the ladies into MVPs. It's what I wanted for myself. It's bittersweet to see I'm on my knees, surrendering to God like what you want from me. Funny cause I'm really trying hard, but what do people see? They wanna count my baby moms and say the third time is a charm, but I ain't saying that they wrong, but it ain't for me. Too much pressure building up, why won't you talk to me? I'm really trying to grow with you, you just want to play with me. The conversations that we have would always stay with me. Digging through the text like, was I wrong? I can't even see. I can't even see. I never thought there'd ever be a day it wasn't you and me. I never thought there'd ever be solutions that we never reach. I'm learning day by day that don't nobody share a heart with me. I'm John Q. Give it all to you if you want me to, but all the sacrifice ain't bring the happiness that I pursue. Gave you everything I had in life, and what I get from you, a lot of nothing. Somehow you just felt I was supposed to do the heavy lifting. Ain't no sorry for the way we living. I chose you, and this is what I'm getting. Everything in black and white, it's just the gray we live in. Everything in wrong or right, it's just the pain we feeling. Pray for me, Sing a song about it. Nigga put a faith into a woman, I got nothing out of it. If I show my chick to Metro Boomin, future with a shot her. It's the company I keep, the devil wasn't proud of. Everything that ain't a wife or boo or baby mama. Need to learn to live my life and listen to my mama. She said that most these women trifling only got vagina. They're bringing nothing to the table, only hot vagina. Still thugging, make love and shit was super bad. Hoping that tomorrow will be better. Annie taught me that. Once you let them go, don't take them back. My granny taught me that. Gotta put your pain over the track. Ye taught me that. Memories we made in winter days. What do you easy say? I put my heartbreak on soul tapes. Ain't no way to wait. Smoke a little bit. Just a little bit like every day. I am not okay. Pray for me. Sing a song about it. I say no about it. See me hanging in the back like a rope around it. Trying hard as hell to swim good, but I'm really drowning. Yeah. But I'm really drowning. Trying hard as hell to swim good, but I'm really drowning. I say no about it. Niggas ask me if we getting back. I don't know about it. Yo, If You Let Me Tell It out now on all digital platforms. I got story raps. I got life raps, love raps, everything. Holla at me, man. Tyree Brary, all digital platforms. Yeah, I'm just happy to be here, man.
Yo.
Just happy to be here.
It's your show.
Yeah. Oh, it's my show.
It's your show.
Hi, Mom. Mom, look, I did it. You know, Brooklyn, I did it for y'all. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
First performance.
Yeah, first ever.
You killed that shit.
Oh, I don't know. I don't want to say I killed it. Y'all think I killed it? Like,
let me get the queen. Come up here, queen.
Look, if the queen said I went, crazy. I see W's in the chat. I always want to say that. W's in the chat.
First performance.
W's in the chat. We
here
live?
on the game.
Don F. Oh, come on, talk to me. Talk to me nice.
Right over here.
I went crazy. I went.
That last one went hard.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's close to the heart.
You did
know
your thing, my
trying,
guy.
Man. I'm just happy to be here, man.
Co-host.
I'm just happy.
Co-host. The whole crew gotta get up here.
Me.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. Oh, come on,
Mo.
man.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Talk to your guy, Mo.
Me.
You gotta show him love.
I'll be trying to tell this cat.
Come
man.
on. Come on, Mo Birius.
Go stream my man's album. If You Let Me Tell It. Out now on all digital platforms. Tyree Brary. That's Tyree Breay. You understand?
Wait.
R-Y, sorry.
Brary. Holla at your boy.
You understand?
Okay.
Figure this shit out. Stream it on whatever the fuck you comfortable streaming this shit on.
Right.
Because my man's is making real music out
And
here.
I'm trending on TikTok. Holla at your boy, man.
Come on, son.
But you know, look, just because you don't know me don't mean I'm not that guy.
He's him. That's how you spell his name, H-I-M.
I'm just trying to say something. You know?
Yo. When my song came on.
Yo, let me tell you something for real. This nigga, he said,
and he taught me that. I'm John Q.
Yeah.
Yo, listen, the heavy lifting.
Yeah, son. Yeah. Yeah, you remember John Q, son?
remember John
Everything
Q.
for he was ready to give it all up for his son. He ain't care if he lived or died.
Yeah.
Just for the love, bro.
But I appreciate you. We made history tonight.
I felt, man, come on.
We made history tonight, bro.
Come on,
I know
bro.
him since high school, bro. Let's talk about it.
Facts.
Let's talk about it. I know him since high school.
Facts.
This been my boy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know what I'm saying? I remember the night I was coming home from work, and I called you.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, you putting out some shit. Like, I've been listening. You You remember?
Yeah.
And I was just like, yo, can I invite you over to the show?
Yeah.
And you was just like,
and son, I wasn't even doing this. I think I was doing CPT. And you was like, yo, son, this shit. I'm like,
yeah.
No lie, that is kind of when, and no funny shit, I see my boy BK Dragon in the freaking chat.
Cliff,
but BK Dragon specifically for this story, son. He hit me up random, like how you hit me up random. And he was like, yo, son, that round of applause song you got, I love it. And I'm like, and mind you, for me, doing this by myself, the feedback that I get is so varied. Like, there's people that are close to me, they're like, yo, that shit is ass. There's some people that nothing I do is good. Nothing. So if y'all saying W's in the chat, there's some of them people that I played these joints before anything, and it was like, yeah, that ain't it. Like, just give it up, bro. Pack it up. I ain't listening to them. I just kept doing what I'm doing. But you know,
I called you.
Bro,
I reached out to you,
bro, and so
and
now
I told CJ, who's conducting in the other room, he's the top engineer.
Right.
I told CJ, I was like, yo, gotta get my man's on.
But I bring it back to this. That call kind of made me realize I'm going in the right path with what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, I need to keep doing this. Yeah. You know, because no funny shit, and this is to anybody.
You killed that shit.
Yo, I appreciate you.
That shit.
But real quick, this is for anybody. Like, yo, if you have a dream or if you have a passion that you into, yo, don't let nobody talk you out of your passion. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's always going to tell you yo, you shouldn't be doing that. You don't know who's watching, especially in this world of internet and all of these things. You don't know who's looking at you, who you're inspiring with what you're doing. So keep doing what you're doing and be great. Because you're going to touch the world some way, somehow, one person at a time.
Know.
One person at a time. That's it. You know what I'm saying? But
you
yeah.
don't know how. For me and the Game Lounge crew, including Mo Black, Mo one of us now. You know what I'm saying? Like me, I was back there in the engineering room with CJ and the Queen, and when you was ripping, we were just like, everybody back there was feeling this, son. You was killing this, son. I just again appreciate you.
And make your face do this.
First performance on your first performance.
Yeah.
I'm gonna repeat that again.
Yeah, for
Right
sure.
here on the Game
Look,
Lounge.
I'm keeping
This
it
is
a
your
buck.
first performance.
One thing about me, I'm gonna keep it a buck no matter what. It's my first performance ever, like anywhere. Anywhere. Yeah.
Detroit
I probably
Poser.
did that little dancey dance for my mom one time. You know what I'm saying? Do that little thing.
Wait,
you
hold
do.
Hold on, real quick. Let me talk to all our people in the chat and all of that been with us since day one.
Yeah.
We know the crew and all of that. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? All right, you know? We came a long way with each other.
For sure.
You and me. You know her. People in the chat, you know what I'm saying? Cliff. We all grew up with Cliff too. Cliff helped me out a long time on the journey. You know what I'm saying? Make Detroit Codes or all that.
Yeah.
And for us to come this fall where we giving people, because that's what I want my platform to be.
Right.
I want to give motherfuckers the opportunity to, hey, yo, come get seen, bro.
I'm just happy to be seen, bro. I'm happy to be
you
here.
feel me? No matter what you do, let some motherfuckers see it.
Mm-hmm.
You got 20-something motherfuckers watching you right now. You feel me?
It's lit. It's
and
lit.
everybody say W's. So,
the W's
again,
mean a lot.
Thank you from me and my crew, the whole Game Lounge crew. And
thank you.
Appreciate you for making the Game Lounge your first performance.
Come on.
And there's many more to come.
It's history, bro.
And we're going to definitely see you again. He from Brooklyn. He
Yeah. I'll be around talking shit because these dudes are heretics in here. I'm not safe. I'm not safe. Yo, I'm not safe.
You
blink twice.
mic.
I'm blink twice. I'm blinking, yo. How it go? Look, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. Help me.
Down the other side of the room, CJ. We're about to make our way over. Chat, we'll be right back. We're gonna go over and kick it on the couch. Just have a good time right now.
All right, sound like
and
good
talk
vibes.
about how you just killed it.
All right, I like that.
Appreciate it.
Yo, it could have went two ways. I could have.
Yo, the Sunday night we hit the screen. Golden Crush goes under the gaming king. CJ, the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town. Welcome to the Game Lounge. Welcome to the Game Lounge, where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden Crust and CJ in the mix. Dropping heat hotter than a joystick fix. Mr. Roll with Ash Ketchum, the OG squad. Now CJ brings the fire, no facade. Word game sharper than a ninja's blade. Every Sunday we got the arcade made. From Twitch to the globe we taking flight. Brooklyn roots, though we shine worldwide. Press start if you're ready to vibe. The Game Lounge crew keeping it live. Never round, no hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, don't hit pause. For the gamers, read the cause. Cheat codes now, we play raw. Gather round, don't hit pause. For the gamers, read the cause. Cheat codes now, we play raw. Gather round, go to the game lounge. Welcome to the game lounge. The game lounge. Welcome to the game lounge. The game lounge. Welcome to the game lounge. The game Yo, the Sunday night we hit the screen. Golden Crush, Blue Thunder, the gaming king. CJ, the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town. Welcome to the game lounge. Welcome to the game lounge. Where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden Crust and CJ in the mix. Dropping heat hotter than a joystick fix. Mr. Roller Dash Ketchum, the OG squad. Now CJ brings the fire, no facade. Word game sharper than a ninja's blade. Every Sunday we got the arcade made. From Twitch to the globe we taking flight. Brooklyn roots, though we shine worldwide. Press start if you're ready to vibe. The Game Lounge crew keeping it live. Gather round, don't hit pause. For the gamers, we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, don't hit pause. For the gamers, read the call.
Who tapped the mic?
Son, this dude is magic, bro.
Bro, listen.
Wow. Now I gotta tell those whole jokes over again.
The joint on the bottom is grayed out.
What?
Do y'all hear us now?
Y'all hear us?
Yeah, they should. Do y'all hear us now?
Can't hear. Potato saying she can't hear.
They should be able to hear us
on
now.
The bottom, that's I don't know about it.
They can hear.
All right, they hearing now. All right, we lit.
Okay, look at us fixing stuff. Come on, Queen.
Kid, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Getting it together.
We got this.
Yo, just kid, we gotta lock in on some Absolem, bro. We have to lock in on some Absolem.
Well, look at you knowing people.
I'm just saying.
I thought Just Kid was my boy.
That's my boy.
You know who interviewed Just Kid?
Yeah.
You saw that interview, right?
Yeah,
That's when you was like, I gotta get on the lounge.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I was like, I need that. I need parts. I need parts. Not for nothing, bro. Not for nothing. Kid is an interesting dude, bro.
No, that's the Dos Equis guy.
Yeah.
Most interesting man. That's him.
Yeah.
That's him.
For sure.
Yo, what's going on with your TY?
Cammy in the building.
What Cammy said?
It's the first time.
Hold on.
Speaking of gaming, when you gonna game with me, Tyree? That's what Cliff said.
Yo, Cliff, whenever you come on, bro, I'm accessible, bro. Like for anyone that knows me in the chat,
Let me just go ahead and send
my
my
phone number is
All
the
right.
same.
Y'all can talk all your shit,
My
y'all know.
Instagram, my freaking TikTok. Yo, you can hit me up. I'll respond. Unless you hit me up about some weird shit. I ain't with it.
Start some shit right now.
I ain't with it, but
Cliff out here keyboard warrior and shit
Uh-huh.
right now, cause he only talking about when you go game with me, nigga. Know where we be at all the time.
Uh-huh.
He don't want this.
yo, you remember when we was trying to link up with Cliff to go like, yo, let's go to a restaurant and eat and chill.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all not
Yeah.
exclusive.
Nah, that's what it is.
Guess what? Cliff come over here all the time.
I bet.
You
I
ever,
bet.
you ever heard Haitian laughter?
That's some dumb niggas. I swear.
It's different. It's a different kind of laugh, you know?
Cliff is a regular. He's a fan favorite.
Yo,
Cliff is one of, you know who Cliff is? He Bruh Man. Whenever you see Bruh Man in an episode, you just happy to see him. You know what I'm saying?
Come through.
Cliff the only nigga, fuck that. We can talk about Cliff all day. That
Hold
showed
up,
up here
man.
with a duffel bag, with a sword, and nunchucks in it.
That's crazy.
And traveled here on the bus.
Wait, you say you had some tequila.
Yeah.
I want to mix it with
It's
whatever
crazy
the
how
hell I'm drinking.
you never forgot that.
I ain't forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, low-key elephant status.
Don't worry, we about to get it
Why,
poppin',
first of all,
folks.
don't be telling lies on the internet, cause this shit's forever.
Yeah,
We out here just telling lies on the internet.
our group chat is stronger than your lies, Cliff.
Right?
I don't delete texts. They're in there.
That part.
From 20 whenever the fuck, it's in there.
We all link up.
Yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah.
I got a cousin
This
just
nigga
like you,
lies to me
Cliff.
more than my dad.
You
bro.
know
Like,
what I'm
stop,
saying?
That's
bro.
crazy.
Yo,
Stop.
no funny shit. No funny shit. That's why I stopped texting Cliff. It started bringing up feelings in me, like why he don't love me, man? Fucking Will Smith. Why he don't love me, man?
I just want to spend the summer with him.
Shit.
All right, so hold on. Usually, our new thing
where
here.
that other one, the colorful one?
Yeah,
I
you-
don't care what you talking about
Yo,
right
this
now.
nigga's his chaser is already chased. It's
Is it?
crazy.
That's
This is
light, bro.
alcoholic,
This
bro.
feel like freaking what's that shit? You know, you ever been on a resort?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I
Nigga
feel like
said if you ever been on a resort, it's an insult. He
Yeah.
don't think you travel.
no,
He don't
no.
think you travel.
Time
I
out.
would already assume
know me better
you've
than
been on a
that.
resort.
Yo, time
right?
out.
That's
Mo,
crazy.
Mo,
That's crazy.
Don't let him.
That's crazy. But yo, Mo, that's
Hold
not
up.
crazy though.
It's a little wild.
Don't
That's
let
not crazy though.
Mo,
Wow.
Mo,
You know
I'm
I
sorry,
Bro said
but don't let him do
it's
it.
like saying, hey yo sis.
Don't let him do it.
It's like saying, no, watch this. Hey yo sis. I
Yo,
don't
give me
know.
my drink,
I
man.
don't know.
Like,
He said, "Bro, my drink fucking
they gonna be like, yo,
Before you pour the
Yo.
lies, pour the drink.
the next song I do is gonna be about alcohol. They gonna be like, yeah, he really about that shit, son.
Bring him back. Bring
He
him back.
really
We
about
need-
that
we need
shit.
a live performance for that shit.
You know what I mean?
Oh, that's hilarious.
Like, yeah, I remember he was wilding out on them niggas and giving him the drink.
Okay, so fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
Nigga think cause he had a great performance, he could talk shit. Fuck out of here.
Actually, that's exactly how it was.
Yeah.
That's exactly how
You
it
the
was.
man right now.
Hi,
You
Mom.
the man.
We love, we outside, baby. What's going on? Holla at your boy, we outside.
Brooklyn.
You
Yeah.
don't know.
Woo!
Yeah. Nah.
You already know.
Chill. Oh, shit.
Fuck you me, nigga. He said
lit.
Brooklyn, nigga.
It's lit.
It's lit.
Hold
You
up.
know my show is lit when a nigga is live on it and want to thank his mom.
You know what I mean?
That's
Yo, you gotta
crazy.
thank your mom, you gotta thank God, and you gotta thank the people that support you. And all y'all that support me, I support y'all too,
Mhm.
man. I love
Tyree
y'all.
Brary, y'all.
Tyree
Tyree
Brary on all
Brary.
digital platforms.
All
Holla at your
digital.
boy. You know what I mean? You gotta do it like Castillo do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Hold
On-
Hold on, I
All
hate to bust your
digital
bubble.
platforms, bruv.
I hate. And he just kept on carrying, bruv.
Big man
He
ting,
just kept big man.
Big man things, yeah.
Big man ting, yeah.
Watch this. Watch this. Watch this.
It's not looking.
From JA to UK.
I saw it
Yeah.
go. I saw it go.
All right, come on now, bruv.
Mm-hmm.
Usually now,
Yeah.
what we do,
Yeah.
because you are our special guest.
See, this is right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
me get a little bit more
Yeah,
of that,
you're
pink stuff.
You're an alcoholic.
This is your
That's not crazy. Yeah, I was just about to say that.
It's cultural.
You ready?
All you're gonna see is the time lapse. Yeah, when Tyrese started, it's gonna be like that T-Pain episode of Drink Champs. Tyrese started, everything was cool. Look at him pour up.
Oh my god.
First drink.
Uh-huh.
Last drink.
Hi, my name's Tyree. This is my first drink.
Okay. I think I hear CJ coming back.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's up, man?
We got our co-host back, y'all. We was just here fucking around because he's stupid. You stupid. Oh, look what you did, CJ. You pressing buttons. That wasn't us. Look at the screen. You see what happens when I don't do it? Everybody don't got nothing to say. Everybody's like, it's a mistake.
Give that man the mouse.
Yo, Sunday night we hit the screen.
Lord Jesus, does anyone have a mouse here?
CJ, the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes for the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the bones to the global town.
What?
Welcome to the game lounge. Where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden crust is CJ in the mix.
With CJ wasn't here?
Mr. Roll with Ash Ketchum, the OG squad. Now CJ brings the fire. No facade. Word game sharper than a ninja's blade. Every Sunday we got the arcade made.
Hold on now,
From
CJ.
Twitch to the globe we taking flight. Brooklyn roots, though we shine worldwide.
Again.
Press start if you're ready to vibe. The game lounge.
No, no lie.
No hit pause for the gamers with the cause.
And like I was saying before they cut me off because I call them all heretics, even though I'm in the valley, right? What's it called? Yo, it could have went two ways, right? It could have been a blooper reel, it could have been something great. I'm just glad that it was something
That
great.
was amazing. That was
Yeah,
amazing. And again, I'm gonna say it again. First performance ever.
yeah.
Exclusive class.
Gather round, no hit pause for the gamers with the cause. Cheat codes now, we play raw.
Play this,
Gather round, no hit pause for the gamers with
Have
the
our
cause. Cheat codes
CJ, you know
now,
what we
we
do.
play
Our queen, which is Melanie Monet. She's our queen of the show. Versus you.
Oh.
I have a
You see how they was trying to set me up the whole time?
We're not trying to set you
This
up.
is setup. This is
Now, sis, you know, it's a music theme. He's a music, so we're gonna do a music trivia.
All
CJ?
right. Yo, you see how it was cool, and then I just realized I had to clap you? Like,
Yeah.
this is crazy.
Mind you, let me let you know. That's your husband you're sitting next to.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
Bro, you gotta hit him first, and then you know what I mean?
That competitive switch is clicked.
Yeah, bro.
Okay, so what I've cooked up for us today is
Stop sign.
trivia. But I've kept it mostly hip hop because that's the kind of music you do.
Right.
What we gonna do.
Right.
This is a good one, y'all. Okay, so
I
CJ,
just
what
want
we doing
y'all to
again?
know
Every
this is
point is worth what? 10 points?
Terramana mixed with what is that?
If you're
Jose. We laugh. Sorry.
okay, we got the question.
Yeah. You got some beautiful handwriting, man.
Cut this man off.
Yo,
Cut this man off.
this man writes
Move
everything
the
by
file.
hand, bro. It's like he really sat there like my palms is
I'm gonna have to
sweaty,
clip that.
knees
Caught me off
weak,
guard as fuck.
arms are heavy.
The bottle.
It's beautiful. Like I'm looking over. Yo, I felt like I was, yo, Mo, like I was cheating on the notes. Like,
Yeah.
all right, I like that.
It's like niggas just writing
Yeah, like-
poetry. You know what I'm saying? Sis,
I'm ready. How many points?
it's like back in the day. Extra check. What was the question? Will you go with me?
Yes or no?
It's like beautiful flowers and poetry.
Ooh.
I'm gonna call it flowetry.
Ooh.
I'm gonna drop the book. The ground shook. Put on your glasses. Take a look.
Yo. Don't hype that up. Don't hype that up.
Bars. Clock it. Clock it.
You gotta clock that.
This is nuts. This is nuts.
Hold on. I ain't gonna hold you. He had me with the glasses ball.
Y'all, come on now.
He was like,
Because when he said it,
take
I did
a look. Yeah.
I was back here like,
I was
hold
like,
on.
all right.
Put your glasses on. I
Yeah.
said, hold on.
Where's this going?
Take a look. I scoped.
No funny shit. You know what that felt like? A super hot fire moment.
That's exactly what that was. Sis, who got bars?
Bars.
That's my number one hype man right here. I do bars, baby.
He's not a rapper.
I'm not. Yo, I do a little freestyle here and there.
Okay.
You feel me?
All right.
All I'm saying is, y'all ready for round one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Each point's worth.
10 points.
Love you right back, Cliff.
Who's keeping score?
Sure,
Everybody
I'll
keep their
score.
own score. I don't.
Yo,
there's
love
a
you,
pen.
bro. Love you.
You want a piece of paper?
Yep. Let me get that. Don't need
Find a fresh
Yo,
page.
I want y'all to know, keep an eye on him, because this is his shorty.
Yeah.
Right?
Yo, it's crazy. I see U.S. Billy said the same thing.
Yeah.
He said, y'all gonna let the queen.
Yeah, keep an eye. Keep an eye. Somebody keep score. One of y'all neutrals keep score.
We don't cheat here.
Look, I already called them heretics. You already know what's happening here, man.
So how do we want to do this? Because it's trivia questions.
Inuyasha.
So do I just ask individual questions or do I throw a question out? See who
Whatever,
knows the answer?
bro.
How you know?
You know what?
Say it at the same time.
Because I got that.
Nah,
That's
individual,
right.
bro. Individual.
Individual?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
if I can't do it, he still. If he can't.
Okay,
do it, I'm
okay.
still.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Family Feud.
Good?
style.
Yep.
Mo, good?
Yeah.
I'm with it.
Okay.
All right.
Then
So,
guess
well.
who's first?
Wow.
You know how
Nah, it's cool.
You know what?
Nah, it's cool. I'm happy to be here. You could go first. You could go first. You know, look, you don't have to, it's cool. Y'all already opened up the space for me. It's all right. Go
Listen.
first. It's nothing. It's all right.
I'll go first.
You go
It's
first?
cool.
Okay, so we got 2 pages of questions. I see you, nigga. You a Brooklyn
This
nigga.
nigga-
He on-
This nigga's handwriting is beautiful as shit. Like, goddamn. Like, shit. Yo, no lie. In high school, don't lie. Yo, when your fucking handwriting was nice, the girls be like, yo, your
Oh, yo,
handwriting
facts.
so pretty.
Facts.
You like,
It's hard to
For a
find
boy.
right here.
That's what they say, for a boy.
what color panties you got on?
I never learned.
Slide that over.
I
What
never lived
color?
that life. I'm sorry.
What color?
Beside
What you got on? I like that.
Hey,
Mm.
I got a show to do. I got stick to CJ's gonna get angry when we go off script.
He said, I ain't gonna say nothing, but all right.
We gotta stick
All
to
right,
that.
my fault. Yo, I'm ready.
I'm ready when he ready.
Look.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Who's first? The queen, you want a question on the first page or the second page? Disclaimer, the difficulty or how easy this ain't on about the page. It's all
Don't
random.
matter.
Don't matter?
Yep.
So you're leaving it to me.
Yep.
Here's my question to you.
Detroit.
Which Atlanta rappers formed the duo
I already got that.
known as Ferrari Boys?
Oh,
Ferrari boys. Atlanta.
Told you I wasn't gonna make it too easy.
this dude going.
I told you I wasn't.
Atlanta.
Ferrari boys.
I
It's
say
hip hop.
I say Brooklyn and all my freaking tracks.
I tell y'all one thing though.
Atlanta?
Everybody here knows these 2 people.
All right,
Mhm.
all right.
Everybody here knows these 2
Ferrari
people.
boys.
Okay, you want me to repeat the
Ferrari
questions?
boys. Nah, I already know the question. I hear it.
Which Atlanta rappers? CJ, I think you might want to hide the chat.
Okay.
Nah,
They tell the answer.
Which Atlanta rappers formed the duo known as the Ferrari Boys?
Chat, I
I'ma
love
go
y'all.
with the yin yang.
I love y'all. I ain't gonna see y'all for a little bit.
You can
She
go
said
Yin
Yin Yang
Twins?
Go
Twins.
with the yin yang.
I say Outcast.
Both wrong.
What?
Clips.
Clips?
I think it's clips.
Wrong
Both
again.
wrong. Who was it? Wait. Don't say nothing.
Which 2 rappers?
The Ferrari boys.
There's not many people who have Ferraris.
Chat.
You gotta think about who has Ferraris.
Chat, does anybody know the answer?
Son, it will make me think like
Don't
Young
worry,
Jeezy
chat.
and Young Jock.
Don't worry, chat. I got y'all on my phone so they can't see.
Oh, he
Just
said
don't
it.
put it there,
Gucci
don't
and
put it there.
Flocka?
Don't put it
Yeah.
up, baby.
Who said that?
See.
Detroit
He said he
Koza.
watching his
No,
phone.
see, he said it already.
Okay,
so-
then both of y'all got it wrong. It is Gucci and Gucci Mane and Waka Flocka, and they had an album named such.
They was a
Yo,
duo?
yeah, no, they
For that album.
Yeah,
I
no.
didn't even know
For that album.
So Flocka
I didn't say
came out
group.
under Gucci,
Oh,
Yes.
man.
right? He was like his super
Yes.
right hand
Yes.
man at one point.
So
I ain't know
Nobody
they did
gets any
Ferrari
points.
Boys.
No points.
And no funny shit. I really enjoy Gucci. I think Gucci was one
how
of
many
the
rounds
best,
are we going to?
the best to do it in jail.
Has to be
Mm-hmm.
5 rounds.
Yeah,
That's
5,
round 1.
50 points.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
that's
5
the
rounds.
first.
All
That's the
right.
first one. For nobody.
How many
Alright.
you got on
Let's
there?
go.
I got a few.
All right,
Okay.
I
let's
got
go.
a few. We don't gotta go
Let's
through all of them. I got a few.
Let's go.
Okay.
Okay. You went
We'll chat,
first?
right? Yeah.
First page or second page?
Any page.
I'm gonna go second page.
Moon, I wasn't paying attention to the fact he said Atlanta.
Who said that? Michael Moon?
Yeah, no. Moon was saying,
That's
he
another
say
children
Clips,
head.
give me your neck.
Yeah.
That's Mike.
Yo, Michael, what up, baby?
Mike
What
has
up,
also
baby?
performed here before as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't
watched.
paying
Oh, yeah, we
attention.
talked about it
I
earlier.
watched
Yeah,
Atlanta.
I watched.
Give me your
Yo,
neck.
it's a Tilden party up in here.
Yeah.
It's a Tilden party.
Tilden
I don't know, we went to high
party.
school together.
Nigga say, give me your neck.
Okay, so here
Hey,
we go.
yo.
Right.
Hey, yo, hit the
Hey,
button.
yo, it's 2026.
Hey,
you
yo.
can't say that.
You gotta be more careful.
You gotta
than
put that back.
You got it.
That's what, yo, the old heads.
Hit him with the
mad.
line.
The Wu-Tang
that.
niggas.
You have got to be more careful.
Wu-Tang dudes, they like, yo, I can't even talk no more. They pausing everything I say.
Okay, here we go. I got one for you.
Yeah.
Got to be more careful.
Yeah, don't let chat. Make sure-
Okay.
see.
Before, it's a good question. I like this question.
Mm-hmm.
Before
Why
his
should be a
rap,
terrible
I
question.
need you to listen because it's your question.
I'm listening.
She could steal if you don't know.
Yeah.
Before his rap career as Childish Gambino
Okay, Donald Glover,
was Donald Glover
right?
was known for his role in which NBC
Parks
series?
and Recreation.
Y'all let
You're
him
welcome.
finish, dog.
Yo, I don't need them to finish. Parks and Rec. You lose. Let's go.
That's not the name
What
I
I-
have here.
What?
You
Hold
lose
up.
is crazy.
Hold up.
Why are you harassing me, sir? That grip kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Somebody be working out. You know what? Somebody taking their vitamins and shit.
Hold on. It ain't.
No, you already gave an answer. You can't read.
All right, you right. Go ahead.
I don't know.
She don't know. I know she don't know, bro.
I don't know. Parks and Recreation.
Childish
Hold
Gambino gotta be the most
Oh,
like.
hold on.
Just because he did This
Was
Is
that-
America,
was that
he's
the-
a very niche dude, bro.
But the question is,
It's
none of y'all got it.
nah, bro. It's
The answer is, let's see what chat got.
no, it's
My Tilden boys.
The Tilden Boys,
Muppets.
the Muppets.
It ain't
The answer I got here is Community.
okay. Yeah. But it's the same
It's not.
visual style as Parks and
Doesn't matter.
Recreation,
It's not
bro.
the same show.
It's
I think-
cool.
I think the shows are related, aren't they?
Yes.
Could be related, but
Tina
Community
Fey.
came
The same
first.
shit.
Tina Fey.
But Community came first.
So Donald Glover came under Tina Fey,
Yeah.
right? She gave him his start and everything. Like, whatever, man.
Okay.
Let's go, man.
Yeah,
Whatever,
okay.
man.
You
I
thought-
don't even
you
care.
thought I was gonna
don't
say-
touch
Yeah,
me. don't touch me.
Okay.
Harassment.
Okay.
That's for me.
First page or second page?
First.
She said first page, okay. I'm not gonna make it easy.
Mm-hmm.
Not.
I knew the answer to this
I'm mad it was
while
Community.
making this. I knew the answer to this.
Mm-hmm.
Which pioneering Canadian rapper they play their basically the industry money for that. So we
Okay.
gotta honor what they do.
Yeah. I ain't
Yeah.
mad at that.
Which come on now, sis.
Cardinal official?
No, wait till
It's
not
not your
turn.
question,
I'm
Once
gonna
he
take
said
your points.
It's not your question.
I'm gonna take your points.
Which pioneering Canadian rapper paved
Yo,
the
if she
way
say
before
Cardinal
Drake's
official,
success?
if she say
Before Drake's success, pioneer Canadian rapper.
There's a pioneer from Canada.
yes, there is.
Alright.
Yes, there is.
It's
Just give it to me.
I only know
Give it to me.
4
I'll give it to
Canadian
you.
rappers.
Cardinal official.
He ain't even that.
He was huge.
back then.
he was with Akon and
Huge.
all that,
He pioneered
Yeah.
Canadian rap.
but he was before Drake.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. Because you stole, that's only 5 points.
That's crazy. I thought when you steal stuff, you get the whole thing.
No, you're gonna lean back a little bit.
I thought when you steal, I thought when you steal,
only
you
half
get
points, right?
How? Mo, if I steal somebody's game system, don't I get the whole game
That's
system?
crazy.
It'd be fast enough.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm about to say that depends on how.
If I steal the streaming camera, do I not get the whole streaming camera? Like, am I
But
lost?
you don't get my stream. No, but you don't get my stream.
You don't get the wires. You gotta go buy your wires.
You don't get to be
You
200.
gotta buy the software.
I'm gonna log it. Yo, it's your boy, Mr. 200.
You see, you don't gotta.
No, you should have put on his few.
That's crazy.
All
All
right.
right, so whatever.
You got
Half
5
points.
Okay.
5
I got you
points.
down for 5. I got you down.
That was your question, right?
Crazy.
It's your turn now.
Wow.
First page or second page?
Wow, I don't even care, man. Put whatever page you want, bro. You see how they trying to set me up, bro? They're trying to set me up. This is crazy. This is crazy, bro. And he gonna give me some wild ass question, bro.
What is Snoop Dogg's legal name?
Clarence?
Mm-hmm.
And Clarence's parents have a real good name? like, what? Who's thinking about? All right, I guess, man. Yeah. Yo, I don't know, bro. And you know what? Look,
Give it to me.
no funny. You know it?
I think I do.
All right.
First name. Do I get a point for no?
Nah, bro. No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Nah. You said full name.
Nah. Time out.
You said
Mo,
full
you
name.
see how the funny shit
I know the
started?
first name. I know the last name.
Chat, you see how the funny shit is
No,
starting?
no.
beat.
Hold on.
I'm sitting
Wait a
on
minute.
giving them cinematography.
Wait a minute.
bro.
No, I got you.
I'm like,
Wait
yo,
a minute.
Parks
Wait a
and
minute.
Recreation and Tina Fey. And all.
It says
I
what
didn't
is.
get half points for none of that shit,
Bro,
bro.
hold on. No, you did.
Directed by the
you
same
got-
cameraman. Nothing.
You got.
Bro,
Hold on. It said what is Snoop Dogg's birth name? I didn't say full name.
you said full.
Calvin.
Yo, where's clip this?
His first name
He
is
said
Calvin.
he said
Calvin
full
Brothers.
I
name.
told you it was a
Mo,
B.
did he?
I told you last
Cal-
time.
yep.
I don't know how to
She
pronounce
said
his
Calvin
last
B.
name.
It's racist.
Yeah.
That's half point.
Calvin Brothers.
Yeah, that's
Remember,
how you
the
say it.
rule
I know
is
what
if you're
it
close
is.
enough, you
see,
get it.
You see what I said?
It's
You
half
gotta
point.
hit him
Yeah.
first, and then hit her. Like it can't. You
Why you getting straight bullets, bro? He just the best sound man
You-
ever.
Look,
I'm
you can't. All
Like,
right, no
I'm just
problem.
cool,
No
How many
problem.
points
Look,
I got, baby?
look.
5.
10. 10.
5
10
points.
points.
You ain't get a whole point.
Yeah.
I know.
Nah,
Can't
she
get a
got whole
point.
points.
Yeah.
I see where I'm at. Inuyasha, I see where I'm at.
Oh my God. You know, so
Batman, freaking Superman, whatever the fuck.
Hey,
DC.
Don't do that. No.
He said no Superman slander. He can see you.
I'll end the show.
I flipped this whole
Yeah.
oh,
Who goes is it?
it's mine.
It's your go? First or second page? First page?
They might have been looking at the fucking pages.
Cliff said
You know
I was
what?
biased when it comes to extra credit. I was
You know
a
what?
victim
She
of
was-
this on
Chris-
Game Lounge.
Yo, Clifford was asking for extra credit because he was born.
Right.
I ain't mad at that. I ain't
You
mad
want-
at that.
Top of the page or bottom of the page?
Bottom.
Okay, so. Damn.
Hard.
Which Academy Award-winning actor also had success as an R&B singer?
He's an actor in the singer.
It says Academy Award-winning actor
Mm-hmm.
also had success as an R&B singer.
Yo,
If
you
I-
gotta put a timer on this too, bro.
If I was to actually read,
Cause she gonna sit here and think forever. No.
Yeah, we got time.
we got timer.
No. Go ahead. You have to answer.
Oh, wait. No,
You-
wait. You distracted
4,
me. Let me think.
No, you distracted her.
No,
You
no,
distracted her.
That's
Mom.
distracting.
Am I lying here, bro?
You get the same time.
Wait,
Fuck
wait,
you.
wait.
You got an answer?
Fuck.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. Okay.
Jamie Foxx.
Oh, shit.
Get off me, man. Get off me.
He ain't getting
Yo,
time to
that's
say.
that's like when you freaking grab the ball, fucking interception.
Only 5 points. He ain't getting the whole
Intercept.
thing.
I don't give a.
Yeah.
Look. I don't give a motherfucker, CJ. I don't give a damn.
Oh my God.
I don't care about none of that.
Oh my God.
Run me
Bring
my
out
points.
you so I can
But why you gotta be all in my face like I did?
Because you're her and she's you, and I can't turn all the way around to be like, yeah.
But I'm on your side. Look,
You ain't on my side. You ain't on my side.
Oh my god.
Hey.
Oh my god.
When they
I'm
laying,
gonna give you your points.
I don't care, man. I don't care. When they laying down tonight, they're gonna be like, yeah, babe, you should have had that answer.
Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna lay there because I'm gonna have to sleep on the couch. How about that?
You be like, yeah, babe, you see the way how he's screaming at me? You see what he was doing to me?
Yeah, if you would let me think, I would have got that because we got it for Ray. I know the movie.
Y'all dumb as hell.
Whose
question was that?
You gotta pay attention, chat. You gotta pay attention. I'm
It's
just
your
saying.
turn. It's your turn.
Cliff said, I need my credit.
I don't
I'm
care
a
what
true
page,
Haitian.
bro. Whatever page. Ça passe.
Michael Moon said that the Tilden has been released.
Mm-hmm.
This is how y'all was in Tilden? I'm glad
Okay.
I didn't go there.
This one.
Wild times.
It was good time.
This one.
Yeah.
I think
CEO
I'm throwing you
Billy.
a bone.
All right.
Yeah.
Chat before the next question.
Hold on. Watch this now. Think I'm-
CEO Billy in the house.
Yo, Billy, what up?
Yeah.
Which rapper featured on Missy Elliott's songs? Gossip Folks.
Oh, no. Hurry up. Let's go. Ding, ding,
Ludacris.
ding. Damn, I had that
Got it.
one.
He
I
got
knew
it.
that. That was easy.
Drop a bomb.
That's a whole 10 points right there.
Drop a bomb.
That's a whole 10 points right
Oh,
there.
for me?
Yeah.
I had that. Why didn't give me that one?
Hey, man.
I could have had that
I'm
one.
dead.
Yo, you know when you're doing something good and somebody hate to give you the credit for it? This is this. This is
Yeah.
in the middle of. Like, yeah, that was the right.
Give me a good one, easy one.
Who's goes? Y'all go now?
Yo, if this next question is easy, pay attention, chat. Pay
Wait.
attention.
Go back. You said lose control?
No.
Nah, don't try to switch. Yo, we're done. Give me my points. We're moving on.
Gossip folks.
Yeah.
We're moving on.
He was making
We're
sure.
moving on.
He was making
I would
sure
say,
you
wait
didn't
a
take his
minute.
point.
Lose
No-
control
notice.
is Sierra
Notice.
and Fat Man
No.
Snoop.
They
Gossip
trying to
Folks.
they trying to
Whose
rewrite
goal is it?
history on me.
Easy. Don't let
She
me
said
choose.
easy.
Easy,
You can't
don't
say
let
it
The
out
me-
loud.
DJ kicked in my brain, bro. Like, you leave me alone. Leave me alone.
You right. We're not even supposed to be leaving.
No,
man.
we're not.
I got a good one. I got a good
get
one.
it, bro.
Yeah, I'm catching
Hold on,
straight.
fellas.
I gotta do it to you.
Hold on, fellas. I got a good one.
Alright.
Y'all go, right?
If this shit is easy, I'm
Yo.
flipping. Yo, think
Yo,
about your
yo,
equipment,
hey,
bro.
hey.
Think
Hey.
about your equipment.
Hey,
I'm just saying,
right
bro.
now they love you.
Yeah,
I can make
yeah.
a villain out of you. with
It's
edits.
cool. I'll be
Yeah.
the villain. I'll be the villain. Niggas gonna be like,
Okay.
yo,
I can see- oh,
game lounge down for a week.
this-
We gotta get new equipment.
Which rapper featured on Katy Perry's hit song
Come on.
E.T.
Come on.
from the album Teenage Dreams?
Wait.
E.T.
Seriously?
E.T.
Wait. I might be wrong. I'm not gonna hold you, but I'm ready.
I probably know when I hear it.
I'm ready. Are you ready?
What does E.T. mean?
Are you ready? Are you ready?
No, I'm not ready. We're gonna have it. Oh, Kanye.
Juicy J?
Kanye. Wait.
She said Kanye.
No.
See? She said Kanye.
Nobody got it.
All right.
Oh, was it Kanye?
Let's see
It
what
was
chat
Wiz
say.
Khalifa.
I know
No.
the song.
Okay.
I just can't remember who.
If you say the song, I'll probably
Let's
get
see.
it.
Let's see.
I said Kanye West.
I know
Yeah.
that song.
Extraterrestrial.
I said Kanye. That's not right.
I said Kanye West.
Wait, who said Kanye?
I said Kanye.
That is Kanye.
The ch-
No, she said it. She said it a long time ago. It's Kanye. It's written.
alright,
It's written.
10
It's
points.
written.
Give my points.
Yo,
Give
they
him a
be
point.
Michael
studying.
Moon said Drake.
Let me
No.
tell you.
They
Potato
study-
said Snoop.
It's
Cole
Kanye,
said
y'all.
Snoop.
It's Kanye.
They study the freaking questions before I get here.
Oh,
And they're like, yeah, you remember everything? Do you
What's
remember?
the score, CJ?
Can you
The
give my
song-
10 points, babe?
What's the
I'm
score?
gonna
Yeah, she got 10 points.
What's the
Hold on.
score? Yo, Mo.
No,
Peep, I've been working extra hard, son. I got like 3 answers right, bro, and I only got half
yeah,
points.
Snoop did California Girls.
California Girls,
Correct
yes.
That's
that,
the one Snoop did.
Yes.
I only got
What's
half
the what's
points.
the what's the
What's
score?
the score right now?
15 you, 20 you.
Of course. I've been
Shit.
working extra hard just to be 5 points ahead.
Whose goal is it?
All
It's
right.
his go.
It's your
All
goal.
right.
It's his
Page
question.
1
I
or
don't
2.
like stealing here, man.
Page 1 or 2, man.
Whatever page, man.
Alright.
Whatever. I don't like
Bring out
stealing
wood
here.
fumes
Said
so I
he
can
ain't
smoke 'em.
scared.
I
I go to
Yeah.
Dollar Tree. Yo, Mo. I go to Dollar Tree where my stealing goes a long way. Fuck that.
Clip
Not
said something.
poetry.
He said when
Who's going with it?
Mo Black does his interview,
got a good one
need
for
to
you.
hear about the lunch tickets. I'm riding if it's not performed.
Wow.
Who said
First
that?
of all,
That's for you from Clip.
first of all, shut the fuck up. Second of all,
I got you, Dirty Dan. Pokemon cards, I
Please.
got you, bro.
why? That is like 22
Actually,
years
right now,
ago,
Dirty
bro.
Dan, I'm not gonna hold you. My fault, Mo.
Nah, you Gucci, bro.
Yo, Dirty Dan, I'm on the news right now for that Pokemon thing in Manhattan.
That's funny. I knew it was your ass too. Because you was quiet on that day.
I said, yo, hit the fucking window with the hammer, nigga. What the fuck?
I ain't heard from this.
What's the score again? 20?
2015.
20 to 15.
What round is this?
I don't know, man, because I answered so many questions right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Whatever, you know, like
round 8.
It's round 8.
round 8.
So he won.
Go to 10.
Of course I won.
Okay.
Of course I won.
Go to 10.
Yeah,
Go to 10.
We gonna prove
I'm
back
right the
that.
first 2
All right.
rounds.
We're
We
going
go
to
to
10. We're going to 10. Watch them
See what-
cheat
She
me.
want to go to Hoodfield.
Just
Hold
because
on,
I said
hold on, wait a minute,
fucking
wait a
Rick.
minute.
Out of your shit.
Wait a minute,
All
hold
right,
on.
all right.
They beefing right now. She said
She's
she want
had
to go to
enough of
Hoodfield
you.
after this. What you want to do?
2 more rounds. Hope you.
Let's
Okay.
do
Oh,
it.
shit.
I'm ready.
So what? 20, 15. Whose goal is it?
I'm
His.
ready.
His.
It's his go. She had
Okay.
the Katy Perry.
Which
Mhm.
rapper
Mm-hmm.
was notably absent from
Bad and bougie? Oh, my fault.
If
You
he
got-
acts
you
like that, he loses.
You
From
gotta
the
let,
kids'
you gotta let
lives.
niggas actually ask the
If he
question,
answers,
bro.
my turn.
Shit, that's the queen though.
You see how it's getting competitive?
Yeah.
You see how it's yo, we're gonna play a friendly game.
Yeah.
Friend CJ's gonna keep the notes. And then when I was like, yo, no, fuck that. We need somebody else keeping notes. They
I
like,
gotta sip my wine.
Tyree, you
This is
gotta
good.
relax.
But Chad
It's
ain't volunteering.
Tyree, yo, Mo,
You-
Tyree, you gotta relax. It's a friendly space. Then she's like, if he answers like that one more time, get him the fuck out of here. I'm like, okay, okay,
Yo, no way.
all right.
You said, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Which rapper?
Mhm.
You said
Whose
which
goal is
noble-
it?
It's his goal. You said which noble
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that
Most notably, rapper has been
I
absent.
gotta find the question again.
It's all right. Pick a new question.
No, I'm not
Nope.
picking a new question.
She's like, nope, this one.
Hold on, I gotta find a question.
We
What the fuck
studied this
happened?
one and
Which
knew
noble-
you would not get the answer
which
for this.
nobly rapper?
Notably, I know the question. Okay, so on page 2 then.
Yo, Mo, what's that freaking music that they play?
Mhm.
Yeah, when shit get fucked up and then
Oh,
Yo, how can I not find the question again? It's crazy.
fucking shit, flip everything.
Everything.
I
Got it.
All right,
you
got it,
I got it.
All right.
Which rapper
Uh-huh.
was notably absent from XSL
Tentacion.
2011's freshman class list?
What the fuck is even that?
Fuck.
XXL's freshman class list.
Mm-hmm.
2011's.
Drake?
2011. Shit, Drake.
No, Drake was there, bro.
Drake
Drake was
2011.
there. Drake was
2011,
there.
Drake definitely
Drake was there.
I'ma say-
Drake was for sure there.
Snoop. I just guessed anybody.
2011.
2011 Snoop is
All
crazy.
right, that's
Big Sean.
nuts.
Big
Yeah.
Sean.
Forgot about him.
Here's the households.
Big
Big
Sean.
Sean.
I
What was
would've-
you gonna
I
say?
wouldn't
I
have
was,
thought
I was
about Big
thinking it was
Sean.
either Big Sean or Kendrick because that was like
That was the
I
year.
wasn't thinking.
That was the
Big
year
Sean
with
didn't
Drake.
make it to the magazine like XSL's list.
So who made it?
Okay.
It was Drake,
Wasn't
ASAP
it 21
Rocky,
Savage?
Drake, ASAP
Yeah.
Rocky, and probably 21.
Some shit like that. That was like the new school.
Yeah,
But
but there was
Big Sean
other
didn't
niggas
make
that
the
was
list,
that
right.
was fucking lit.
whose goal is it?
Come on. Any question. Any question.
So that
Any-
was that
any-
was
Any question that we studied.
This would be question 9. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
This is question 9.
If I had a
Yes,
if I had
Cliff,
an
you
owl
walk in
neck, I would be
silence.
looking at you the whole time. I just want you to know
I'm not cheating.
who.
Okay.
Who?
I gotta
No,
go.
I'm reading that real quick. They said Dylan.
Dylan. Mm-hmm.
Michael Moon saying Dylan.
Dylan Dillinger.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, fun fact. Dylan Dillinger, my barber, before this barber, my homeboy.
Was Dylan?
That's his cousin.
Yo, no funny
That's his
shit.
actual blood cousin.
I was
That's
gonna
fucking
drop a
crazy.
freestyle. And I got some Dylan balls in there.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay, so
at CJ is Bison. You're in Shadaloo, Tyree.
Your go, right? Okay. I got a question. Hold on. Hold on. I got a question.
Like I am.
It's still 25, right?
Of course it is.
It's question 10, right?
For some reason, it's tied up. I answered so many questions.
It's okay.
I answered so many questions, and somehow we're tied up.
He said 2 questions.
I went crazy.
Watch this now. This is your question. If you
For
don't
double
get this,
points.
it's over. Right?
This is your question for double points.
If she don't get this, you win.
Yeah.
If she get this, what's the score?
It'll be 20 and 15.
If she get this, she'll be above you, but we'll give you a chance to rebuttal.
No, she's at the.
No,
he's at 20.
no. If she gets this, then they can still go. If she doesn't, they can still go because
if she get this and she goes, we could do one more round and see, and then that's it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Or you want to do this? That's the final
Yo, where's
round.
the standby screen at?
Well, if we were pushing 9,
this should
is
about
10.
to go crazy.
This should be it.
This will be 10.
Okay.
The dude drunk behind the camera.
All right. Here
All
goes
right.
the question.
All right, I'm ready.
Which legendary hip hop collaboration resulted in 2011 album Watch the Throne?
How fucking easy is?
Wow.
Yo, nah. 5, 4. You don't know? You don't know?
No, I don't know.
That's wild.
Jay-Z and Kanye West.
Yeah.
Come on.
Like that.
She said, I don't fuck with that.
It's like, fuck them
I don't
niggas.
fuck with that.
Fuck the
You know what?
mamas
Actually,
and fuck the
that was
Wright
gangster.
brothers.
That was gangster. She said, I don't fuck with that shit.
Yo,
Damn.
Look, Cliff said Jay-Z and Kanye.
Okay, so
I don't
Tyree,
fuck with that.
you leave the winner again.
I'm not pleased with that victory.
What do you mean?
Whatever, man.
Why? The people are clapping.
It's cool.
They love you.
It's cool. Shout out to y'all, man. Shout out to y'all. I'm not safe over here, man.
You win, my guy. You win.
This nigga's handwriting is beautiful.
Yeah.
You know the answers. This is looking at the hand. Pay attention, chat. Pay
What? I wasn't looking at nothing.
That Dr. Handwriting, you can't see nothing with that.
These glasses are real.
Yeah.
Like,
He got the Clark Kents right there.
I can't see shit. Like, what?
Okay. CJ, you got anything for us? You prepared?
Not you don't want to run behind.
Oh shit.
The game that they just
Okay. Well, I gotta be fair.
Yeah.
It's up to him. He wins. If you want to go another round and
Nah,
Hood Feud.
nah. We're done. We're going Hood Feud. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Hood Feud, Josh.
And this is not made about him. This is already cards that's already
oh, she said she's ready.
ready.
All right.
I see you got that freaking
Hood
And
Feud.
you can choose your own card.
All right. Okay. Let's do it.
Hood Feud.
You do know if she wins this, tied up now. One winning.
All right, whatever, man.
What is it again?
Whatever,
4
man.
answers, and you said the first one is.
It's self-explanatory. Hood Feud.
Yeah. So,
So the number one answer, it's worth more points. The second answer, it's worth less points, so on, so on, so on.
right.
The points are already there.
Right. So we're going to 100 this time.
Are you gonna go all the way to 100?
How many points? No, but they points.
Oh, this is the first time
Well,
y'all ever
yeah,
did
some of
this?
those
This is one
This is
of
the
them would
first.
be like
This is the
60
first time
points.
y'all ever went
I
that
think we
far.
should go to we should go to 60.
They trying to set me.
Because
One
some
question
cards
could
be
give you
50.
60.
Yeah.
Okay, so go to 100.
Yeah,
Right.
because some of the answers be like.
Okay,
60
so
points.
guess what, chat? Round 2.
Just
And you
focus.
pick your own cards. So you don't see
Focus
nobody
on what I'm
choose
saying.
back
They
then.
trying to set me up.
You first.
This is the first. Like, this
Yeah,
is the
when
first
you go
time we ever
first.
did this.
No.
All of a sudden, it's me. Why? Because
Each point,
I said they're heretics. Right?
the
I
heretics.
said I'm not safe.
Too much Warhammer,
Just
bro.
remember. All right, whatever, bro.
So you pick the card, give it to me, and I'll read to the people.
Yeah, sure.
And you gotta answer.
I'll take this one because this one talking to me.
Don't read it.
Why gotta be these black people at the
Goddamn
Don't
card.
read it.
Oh, I wasn't even looking at it. I was showing. Yo, we got a chat.
So I said, I wasn't even looking at it.
Nigga like, I wasn't even seeing this motherfucker,
Yo,
man.
you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy? Genuine shit. I'm a little sledge.
Surprising nobody.
So I'm just saying, it's genuine that I'm like, yeah, let
Okay.
me show y'all the back of this car.
Okay, hold on now.
Alright,
This is a good
alright,
question.
Whatever,
Damn. This is a good. Who goes first?
It's his card. so you
Okay.
gotta
Yeah,
do it.
Yeah,
okay.
he won first, so.
Wow.
Okay, so here we go.
This feels racist.
Remember, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 answers on here.
Okay.
If you get the number one answer, you get the points for that.
Okay.
Number 2 answer, you get the points for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good question. I like this question.
Mm-hmm.
Name a popular cheese. Go. Give me one.
Government.
That's his one. American.
It's hilarious.
Again,
Government's crazy.
both y'all banked out the first one, so they go again.
Oh wow.
The government.
No,
Cheddar.
nothing on top.
Cheddar.
48 points.
For cheddar?
Yeah.
Cheddar.
I mean, yo, when it said hood feud,
Yeah.
I'm saying government is huge.
Mm.
This
Still
is
get
this
to go.
really a hood game?
I didn't
Mozzarella.
Like, hey, I'm just saying.
Mozzarella's 2, 23.
23.
Hey, no,
I didn't
48,
realize
23.
government was a brand.
No-
was a type of
no
cheese. I just thought
offense
it was a brand.
to any white people in the chat, but white people be, you know,
Oh yeah.
they
We
be,
know it's them.
oh yeah, hood this, and it's not really,
Nah.
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
True.
Because the hood answer is government, bro.
Sorry.
No, you.
So you got 48 points, she got 23.
I ain't gonna read it.
See, she
It's
didn't
my
fucking
See
cheat.
how easy that is?
He said, I wasn't
Motherfucker
even.
picked
He
it up.
said,
Bruh.
I wasn't even looking.
Listen,
This is
chat.
you. This is you. I wasn't even
I
looking.
want y'all to see. See, because I'm trying to share with y'all, they trying to crucify me. Right? I'm just saying. I want y'all to be a part of the vibe. Just remember me when everything is said and done, right? Just remember me. I tried to include y'all in the vibe.
That's a good question.
All right, I'll go. Don't say the answer. Say the
You
answer, I
you
get your
answer
points.
after her.
Okay.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
You got a
Say,
first
what's-
time.
You go?
Yeah.
Who's our first time chat? Raise them up for me,
Hold
CJ.
on. I gotta get back in the
First
seat.
time
I'm
chat,
gonna
welcome
die.
in. We got a new guy.
First time chat from Sherman, Mr. Sherman.
Mr. Sherman, just want to welcome you in.
Mr. Sherman, hey, respect
every
Mo
Sunday.
Black and crew from Ambassador Sherman, XL.
Oh, what up, what up,
yes,
baby?
yes, welcome
You
in.
ambassador,
What up?
my dog.
Welcome in
Sherman
every
XL.
Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called the Game Lounge. We got many guests on today. Our special
Yeah.
guest is Tyree Berry,
Yes.
and he murdered the performance he
Oh,
had for
man.
Yeah.
do
Shout out-
performance as
shout
well.
out
He
to
murdered
Mr.
that.
Sherman. That's my big brother in
I
comedy.
feel like
right
Stevie
there.
Wonder.
So,
Don't
Mr.
Yeah.
Sherman, you wanna say where's that?
Don't do me like
Where's
that,
that,
baby.
Mr. Sherman?
New chat, next person coming.
Okay.
It's your go, right?
Yep.
Prominent African American athlete. Give me one name, just one.
Jackie Robinson.
Okay, your go.
Bo Jackson.
I'm gonna just go to the next question.
Mm.
Nobody got nothing.
Okay.
Really?
Dude, Bo Jackson, Bo knows football. Bo.
Not Jackie Robinson.
What is this game, bro?
Yeah.
Michael Jordan had to be on.
Michael
Yeah, Jordan's
Jordan.
up there.
People like that.
Son, if it
Will
wasn't
Chamberlain?
Michael Jordan, it had to be Bo Jackson. You telling me Bo?
Y'all want to keep going and see who get the
Will-
first
yeah,
one?
Will
Yo.
Michael
Chamberlain.
Jordan would have.
No, go.
Yo,
Go up, stop,
look,
no, go.
Look,
No, next one. because
Next
there
one,
is
okay.
some
The next
names
one.
Randomly.
None of y'all
I'm
got
about
none
to
of them.
flip
Even
every-
the names after they mentioned, none of these names was on there.
this is not
None.
hood nothing.
That's a stupid
This is not hood.
Hey, hey,
Yo, whoever made hood, whatever, what is this? Hood,
Hey.
Don't look at the card.
don't look
hood
at the
feud.
card.
Whoever made hood feud, y'all niggas is lying. This ain't hood.
Give me
nothing,
the goddamn
bro.
card.
I ain't looking. I'm not
He
looking.
tried to be smooth. He was like, yo,
was
whoever
holding that
move you
shit
from
back.
yeah.
Whoever made Hood Feud,
He tried to.
y'all don't understand how this. Y'all ain't
The hood
made
feud, my boy.
shit.
Fuck the hood feud.
It's like this fucking hood
Ah!
game that you niggas is trying to
And Mo got glasses too, so he can do exactly how he was
Yo,
doing.
Mo, I ain't gonna hold you. Tequila with the whatever. The
do. Yeah, you
fuck.
fucked
Oh
up.
God,
Nigga, I gotta drop.
I appreciate you so much, my guy. I appreciate it. You are clip god. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
All
and
right, that's
hey,
your question
I'm
now.
reposting all of it.
everything, bro.
I'm just letting you know.
Everything.
Yo,
Let's go. Let's
Some
go.
people watching this shit like, yeah, that's Ty. He's still the same dude.
Same nigga.
Same nigga. You know?
All right, let's go. Okay, whose go is it?
His.
Of course, it's my turn.
Major
I
parade.
feel like I just won.
I think you might want to listen,
Yeah, right?
Labor Day.
but you know what? You're gonna have to hold that answer. Whether it's
Nah,
on here or not. No,
nah.
he said Labor Day, right?
I'll bite you, bro.
Stop saying Labor Day. Labor Day. Fuck that. Labor Day is your answer. You've been doing that since the interview, my guy.
This nigga said I'll bite you.
You hungry?
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
bite you is wild.
Son, yo, Mo,
This nigga's
I'm about to flip this shit. Hold up.
rabbit.
You said Labor Day.
But wait, why does he keep wanting to flip our shit?
Y'all playing with my face with this shit.
Wait.
You bring this
That
white
is
man's
so
hood
funny.
feud. Fucking shit. Yo, hood feud. Y'all gotta see me, nigga. Y'all don't. This ain't hood nothing, nigga. This.
Oh,
I'm from the hood, nigga. This
He
ain't hood.
said,
All right.
you playing ghetto feud.
Yeah, this is like
Right.
So hold on, wait a minute.
hood feud from like the third.
You gotta
party.
stick to your answer, nigga. You
Whatever,
said-
nigga.
Yeah.
Let's go, man.
Yeah.
Let's go. I stand on it, bro.
Labor Day.
Yeah, Labor Day. Let's go. What
You can't
parade?
sit next to me without getting punched out.
Let's go.
That's a real New York Islander answer.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Labor Day. Yo,
I would have said that too.
come on, bro. Like, what other parade is there, bro?
You ain't heard the question, nigga.
I don't need to. What other parade
What is the question?
Labor Day.
What is the question?
It's sad that I agree with her.
What parade?
Here's the thing.
It's other
Here's the
parades.
thing.
I just don't want to say them.
Right? I don't disagree.
Oh, God.
I just still want to know what the question
I'm
is.
just
Hold on,
saying.
wait.
All right. Chat, feel me. They said hood feud. What parade do we have in the hood other than Labor Day,
That's a
bro?
fact, though.
That's
a
the
fact.
only parade.
Yeah.
My
How
nigga,
is it a me thing?
He's not. I'm not saying you're wrong.
That's a fact, though.
I'm not even saying you're wrong, bro.
Chat is
He's
chatting.
about to be-
What?
Nigga, boy.
Chat is chatting. I got tears.
Light skin feud is hilarious.
Light skin feud.
I guess
the lighting.
it's the lighting,
Yeah.
right?
No, you the lightest nigga here.
I'm a chocolatey mother.
Nah,
man.
fuck that. I'm dark skinned. Fuck that.
You know what I mean?
It's team
Summertime.
dark skin. This whole
Summertime.
Nigga, I'm black as fuck.
I like to think of myself as an almondy brown.
Yeah.
Summertime, I get real Morris chestnuts. You know what I mean? They be like,
I
yo,
hit you with the deep.
like Morris, that's you. I'm like, best man.
With the deep caramel.
Oh,
masala.
God.
Right.
You gotta know your tones, bro. You gotta know your tones.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Whose question was it again?
His.
What'd you say? Labor Day.
Labor Day, whatever y'all
Yeah.
made me say
Yeah,
Labor
what
Day.
was the
Y'all
question?
made me say Labor Day. So whatever, man.
Say the
This
question.
yo, anybody that play this game, this hood feud game, just know it's a white man's game, bro. This ain't fucking hood nothing, bro.
Fucking Finkelstein
This
made
ain't-
this.
Yeah, right? He's like, yeah, I see how they get down. I love this.
Okay. That's not the same question.
Say the question.
I lost the
It's
question.
probably right there.
It's probably right there, bro.
Nah, that ain't it.
You sure something in your hand?
Nah.
And he
I lost the question.
I'm drinking, and he's losing all the shit. How?
No.
How?
You never know.
How, CJ?
I got it.
Yo, son. When I want to say the
got
shit is
it.
rigged, I think the host
Whatever
is
y'all was drinking it, I
They
don't want
mixed
none.
it. They mixed the damn
No,
pink.
I mixed.
Oh, the
He
pink
mixed
with
But
the
he's
other
more
one.
drunk than me.
I don't
I
want
got
none.
it. I got it though. I
I
got it.
had the tequila with the pink shit.
Yeah. Son, that
And
shit
the
go
pink
crazy.
shit is
Yo,
already.
This
it's
is the
already-
funniest shit ever in my
It's
life.
already a margarita
This is the
drink.
funniest
This
shit
nigga's
We
ever.
made a super margarita.
Yeah, because
Woo.
I felt like the
He got the
tequila,
2.5 times alcohol.
the
right there.
tequila was like to life in. You
Okay.
know what I'm saying? It ain't what it
CJ,
wasn't
what's the
killing the
score?
way how I needed to. So I
This nigga
needed.
sound like the Wolf
48,
of Wall Street of
23.
alcohol
Yeah,
right now.
48
Shout out to the Wolf of
to,
Wall
to the
Street.
Queen 23.
Yep, we're going to 100.
Answer, I want to know the question of this.
Chat still don't know
That shit
what
took
the
a
question
lot.
is.
Yo, chat, I'm sorry because they hid y'all from me. I
What?
can't.
What? Yo, your answer is written in stone.
What's
Mhm.
the question?
They cheating me.
I'm supposed to read this, right?
Just
read the
watch.
question.
Yeah, read the
The
question.
next question, I'm gonna shut up.
I know how to read. I got an associate's degree.
Damn question. You too damn drunk.
I went to college.
ICDC,
Read the question.
ICDC college.
Please. 'Cause at this
Yo,
point-
hey, you there just sitting on your couch. Do something with your life.
Read the
I got it.
ICDC.
I got it.
College.
Hold on. I went to college.
Hey, it's me.
You're sitting on your couch,
Doing nothing.
watching streams.
Yeah.
Your life is just passing you by.
Oh my God,
What's the
you
matter
sound
with
just
you?
like
You can
him.
just get up. Why don't you do it? It's easy.
Tyree just had a great performance.
Yo, he sounds just like him. That's mad crazy.
We was just talking shit about that fucking commercial like a couple weeks ago.
Yo, but that's true.
Oh,
You
God.
make niggas feel like
That
shit.
for real, bro. I'm homesick.
CJ, what is chat saying right now?
I don't even know.
We gotta catch up with chat. We gotta catch up with chat real quick.
It's a whole lot.
This is crazy work.
Sherman said he about to take
Sherman,
a
thank
bite
you.
out of crime.
For the Labor Day parade. Yeah. Look, next question.
He said
I'm gonna
the
shut all the way
most
up.
popular is the Labor Day parade.
Labor
I agree
Day
with Mo
for the
Black. Let's
hood.
get a full question.
For the hood, there's no parade.
All right.
Cliff said box of crayon 64 pack will help you get your skin tones right. Crayola.
Listen.
Cliff lived the privileged life.
Hey.
Crayola niggas is crazy.
I gotta go smoke some weed. Hold on.
Cliff, that's your one.
Chat said with a question. Like, it's
Yo, you see this nigga just.
Wait.
Sherman
Time
keep
out.
asking what the question
Time out.
is.
Nah.
Wait a minute. Ask Catch 'em all.
Nigga said Pikachu.
Why you added to the
I don't know what I missed.
What is going on here?
I don't even know.
Yo, help me.
I
Help.
got
I just
tears.
want to know the question.
My eye.
I'm trying to be
I
okay.
choose you, nigga. Would you choose a goddamn question?
No,
Let's go.
no.
We still wanna
Yo,
know
that
about
one
the
question,
parade
right? I'm back. Niggas can't hear the parade yet,
Hey,
bro.
Cashier, what's up, bro?
That should be something mad obscure that nobody goes to.
Y'all need to grow up.
What's the parade, bro?
I got a show to run here.
Yes.
CJ, get this shit in order.
Yo, get your house in order, bro.
Fucking get it together.
And not me, him. That's your host, bro.
Stop yelling at me.
Not me.
Read the fucking question.
Yo, like
All right.
dead ass. Waited and bated breath.
You
for
guys
this
need to grow up. That's what you need to do.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna get the Denzel arm on you.
Yeah.
Get my shit
Yeah.
together.
Oh, you
They said he's
motherfuckers.
still waiting.
You motherfuckers.
Okay.
Read the
Your
goddamn
question.
question.
Playing basketball in
Yeah.
Pelican Bay.
I hate black people.
The same
Sherman
thing.
is still waiting
That's
for
the
the question.
same thing the kid in this game said. Yeah, I hate black people.
Oh God.
Let's go.
Privileged man, I stole that shit from Bobby
Hood
right on
feud.
Utica, right near.
Y'all niggas is the
right next
best.
to the pizza
Damn
store.
question.
Okay.
It was a privilege to use it in class.
Move it out the way.
Oh,
Okay.
potato
Come on, the
clipped
question
it.
coming. Stop talking.
I
now.
want to see that clip.
Yeah. Go ahead. Question. Go.
That clip
Nothing
is
else. No more. No more.
Major
question.
parade or event celebrating African American culture. You said Labor Day.
Labor Day.
African American culture.
Yeah.
What?
Yo, if they say anything other than Labor Day, I don't want to play. Let's go. Labor Day.
Labor Days.
Let me tell you one thing. I'm gonna ruin one thing on purpose because I don't give a fuck right now.
Uh-huh.
He's number 3.
Mhm.
Regardless of how they have it written here, we're gonna agree that.
Labor Day is
we
number
always
one.
say the closest to something, we'll give it. So Labor Day is number 3.
Makes sense. So thank
Number
you,
3
man.
is 20 points
Okay.
because it says African American Day Parade. I'll give him that.
Wait, so wait. What's
Right.
the number one?
Number
What's the
one.
number one?
What you have?
Oh,
you have to
Thanksgiving, whatever. I just want to know that.
Essence Festival.
That's here?
That's not even a
Hey,
parade,
hey,
bro.
hey,
Wait.
That's
Hold
not
on.
a parade.
Hold
Shout out to
on.
Sherman for the follow.
We got a new follower.
That was Sherman.
Thank
Sherman.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sherwin, shout out to you, bro.
Okay, number
But
2.
that is not a parade,
Listen,
bro.
we gotta go with the, so you get 20 points for that.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, Taste of Soul.
I don't know.
That's not a parade.
You know what? Here's
These
a
are
thought.
festivals,
Well,
like
here's a thought.
get-togethers, bro.
Here's your thought. I'm not defending it too much
I'm
because
def-
I would have said that too. What he
Yeah,
said.
Labor Day, right.
Whoever made get this.
But
in
hold
the
on though. I
Hood
think
Fuel?
sometimes you get caught up in the fact that we're from Brooklyn.
Yeah, oh,
This
right.
game is not
Brooklyn
made
based.
for Brooklyn.
Yeah.
That's true.
So the Essence Festival may be even bigger than the
I
parade.
mean, Essence Festival is
as
big,
far as we know,
but it's not a parade,
Yeah,
bro.
there's in a
it
name,
says
festival.
it says parade or event.
For
You gotta listen to the
African-American
question.
culture, yeah.
Parade or event.
We
For
went
us
off
in
when- you
for
went
us
off
in
when it's a
Brooklyn,
parade, yeah.
for us in Brooklyn,
It's
Labor Day is it.
No
My
funny
ignorant
shit.
ass really
No
did
funny
the-
shit.
the question was a
My
little
boy
less.
hit me up earlier. He was like, "Yo, 6 p.m. when?" And I was like, "Yo, I forgot that everybody watching.
It's
ain't-
not Eastern Standard Time. That's why I put everything that I post. I put EST.
Right.
Okay, so he got
Hood
20
Fuel?
points. We move on.
Yeah.
All right, look,
So you said Thanksgiving's not up there.
No.
So
I'm an
20
adult.
You got 20
points.
points for him.
You got 20
I'm
points
an
for that.
adult. Hood Feud, I apologize. Y'all thinking bigger than I'm thinking.
It's not just Brooklyn.
Right.
It's America.
Right.
So we might not be.
We thinking blackity.
I'm black and Brooklyn.
Whose question was that?
That was his question. It's my go.
Yeah.
Remember, you can.
I don't want to see.
Labor Day parade is. So there's more people at Essence Festival than Big.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Crazy at New
Because there's like
Orleans.
millions of like.
But I'm
millions
saying the Labor Day parade is only Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And it's
It
only
It only
for,
matters
like,
to us in Brooklyn.
So it's only that one day.
That's
And it's
the
not
only-
televised like
the
Essence.
only
Essence
parade
Fest
I
is
know.
crazy, dog.
Essence
Alright,
Fest,
so-
they
They got
colonized it.
superstars and everything.
They colonized.
Okay, so this is the good one.
It's my turn.
Famous African American jazz musician.
Okay.
What's his name?
What's his name?
Come on now.
Oh, I can get his
I'm ready when.
Come on, you
whenever
got at
are.
least one up there,
I can't
girl.
get his
I'm ready.
name.
So
Let me look.
she
Check
can't
you
get
hear
it.
me.
She can't
Famous
get
African
No, wait,
American
give me
jazz
a-
musician.
What's the
He
fuck
said it
name?
twice. She ain't get it. It's
What's
my
his
turn.
name?
It's my turn.
Hold on. 5,
All right, that's all I'm gonna do.
4,
What's his name? What?
3.
And what I think.
Harry Belafonte. Fuck it.
Harry Belafonte.
He's an actor, isn't he?
No.
Armstrong.
Dizzy Gillespie.
Armstrong. Neil Armstrong. Fuck, that's his
Nah, not Neil Armstrong.
What did you say?
Dizzy
Armstrong is
Gillespie.
his last name. What's
Who?
his last name?
Dizzy Gillespie.
Oh, name.
She said.
Armstrong is the last
None of
name.
y'all got it.
She
but
said it while
Louis Armstrong
That's
is
his
his name.
number
name.
one.
I knew
She
it.
said it
It's
while
not
I
number
was
one,
saying
it's number
my
2.
answer. That's
So
But
right.
your
number
answer's
one?
not on it.
Dizzy
Oh,
Gillespie
so I
is
got
not
the
there.
point.
No.
That's kind of nuts.
Nah. All right. Now I'm going back. Hood. Freaking.
No.
I don't
Let me
know.
read off the names though.
Okay.
Number 1, Miles Davis.
Oh,
Okay.
Miles Davis.
Number 2, Louis
Louis
Armstrong.
That's what I was trying to get.
Number 3, Ella Fitzgerald. I know Ella
Oh,
Fitzgerald.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
the lady. Yeah.
I know
Okay.
Ella Fitzgerald. Number 3, Duke Ellington.
Mm.
Oh,
Okay.
here we go.
Number 4, this guy I don't know, John Coltrane.
You know. Yeah.
How many points I get for
So
Armstrong?
I ain't gonna hold you.
9.
Whoever's watching that's like a super jazz historian, I might be mixing up. But I think Dizzy Gillespie is a
Cole just
jazz
said
dude.
Miles Davis and Duke Ellington.
Yeah, Louis
Yeah.
Armstrong.
And
Miles
Sherman
Davis
said
is number
Louis
1.
Armstrong.
Duke Ellington.
Dizzy,
9 points for her.
Is
Good.
Dizzy
Armstrong.
Gillespie not a jazz dude? Saxophone, right?
Yeah, but it's only 5. It may not be.
All right.
He or she may not be not top 5.
Like, yeah, okay.
You get what I'm
Family
saying?
Feud shit.
Right.
Yeah, all right, cool.
So
All right.
I-
she got 9 points for Armstrong.
Hood Feud, once again, I'm sorry.
Right now, we 32 for her, 68 for you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Whose goal was that?
Mine, it says-
Stop sign.
That 48 one was a big one he hit.
A 48 was big.
That's what I said. You go ahead and say 60 something.
He stayed trying to peek.
I definitely peeked that one in a way. I ain't gonna hold you. If I don't know, I'm going to the one that I saw.
Take 6 points away.
Take 6 points away. I don't give a
Whose
fuck.
goal is it?
It was high up there, so I'm getting a
It's
good
your
amount
goal,
of
right?
points. Yeah, it's my turn.
Name something you might buy at a bakery.
Bread.
Bread, that's your
That's
answer?
his answer. My God.
Don't take 6 points away from that, because
You
that's
gotta
not the one I
dance,
saw.
nigga!
What's the sound for abuse, Mo?
Yeah. You said bread, right?
Yeah, bread.
9 points. CJ?
Cake for me.
9 points.
Wait,
9
I say
points?
mine. So I didn't say
Hold on.
mine.
Cake.
Cake.
9 points for him. Bread. Cake. 38 points.
Cake.
Damn.
Add it up.
38.
Yeah, bro.
And the
Bread.
one-
Little bread. 9.
Just barely
Yo,
made
she's
it.
sitting behind me. She saw
Barely.
the answers.
You peeked at it and still got the 9
Yeah, exactly. Your glasses ain't working, bro.
What's the score now?
How you cheating wrong?
All right, hold on.
How you cheat wrong, Mo?
I just want all my girlfriends to know that's why I'm not a cheater.
Fuck out of here.
Oh, he tried it.
He tried it. He tried it.
He said, "Oh, my girlfriends." Oh, my girlfriends.
Somebody clip
With
that.
an S.
Somebody clip
Girlfriends
that.
with an S though.
We
Somebody
got
clip
too
that.
much clippable moments right now. My
Girlfriends
morning is
with-
filled
He's not
making
clocking
clips.
it.
He's clocking it right now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
What?
77 for him, 70 for her.
Wow.
Right behind you.
Wow.
That 38
I
brought
was
you
working
up.
my ass off, bro.
Hold on, chat.
You said bread.
Hold on, chat.
To see you,
It's-
Otis.
Hold on.
Working my ass
let's,
off.
let's see what chat
Hold
had
on.
to say.
Let's clock
see.
in.
Let's
What's the
see.
score? 77 for who?
70
For him?
for him?
70 for me.
70 for her. Let's
Okay.
see what
This shirt
chat
is
had to
velour.
say too.
Let's see what it's catch up with chat. Let's get up with chat.
Uh,
Sweet bread is crazy. That's a trinity right there.
Yeah.
Cliff said beef patty with cocoa bread.
Y'all got too black. Get out of Brooklyn a little bit.
Right.
The fuck?
Cam said 10 points to CJ. He reacted the fastest. I mean, I'll take my 10 points right now.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
A-Cat said sweet bread.
A-Cat said sweet bread. And Sherman said bread, cake, pie, muffins, cupcakes.
You can tell how West Indian niggas is in the chat by what they say.
Exactly. Exactly. So whose goal is it?
Oh, what part of that
No, it's my goal.
Yeah.
The card, it's my goal.
Hey, Cash, what part of that are you from?
You see the competitiveness? I thought this was a friendly game.
It's not.
No.
As soon as I started talking about offing him and then having to do her now.
Okay.
Like, Tyree, you're crazy. Why would you say that?
My question.
Oh.
Let's move the chat again.
This is a good one. This is a real good one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answers, but the question is nice.
Okay.
You'll go, right?
Yep.
Name a popular black hairstyle from the 90s.
Afro.
From the 90s?
I didn't think that.
Damn, now you're stuck with Afro.
I really didn't think that.
You're stuck with
Finger
Afro.
waves.
Hold on.
Finger
Afro
waves.
finger waves.
Is either one on there?
Number one,
What?
box braids.
Yeah.
Damn, why
Okay.
I was going to go.
Janet Jackson.
Number two,
Finger waves.
high
Number two, what?
high top fade.
Right.
Cornrows.
Number three, cornrows.
Damn, why you say
Number
braids?
four, finger waves.
Oh, you got that one.
I'm just happy to be here.
How many points you have for that?
15.
15 for
You almost said 100.
finger waves.
I think he had 100 now. ain't he?
Number five,
No.
what's a jerry curl?
Ew.
The
That's,
S
Oh,
curl.
okay,
that's
okay.
just so.
Just
Yeah.
Fuck your couch up. Fuck your whole couch up.
Well, fuck me up is how they spelled it. Jery.
Yeah, that's how you
Yeah,
spell it.
Nah, that's Jerry. That's Jerry.
That's how you spell it.
Yeah,
That's how you spell it.
Nah, it's Jery.
No, not
You
Jerry
don't know
Mouse.
Jerry and how he started that curl, bro.
You're right.
See what chat say. I
Hold
can't
on.
believe I said Afro. Like that.
Afro is
I
wild.
took it too far.
Afro is
Niggas,
wild.
Niggas-
everybody
92
collectively
now.
was like, the
The 90s.
I took it too far back.
Power to
I
the
took it
people.
too far back.
All right. What's the score, CJ?
Wait, let's see what chat.
Hold on. Let me just read chat real. Okay, this is great. I gotta fix that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
A-Cat said
yep,
corn.
flat top and a
He said his
Gumby.
parents from Diego
Gumby.
Martin.
That's Gumby is
That was like
Cornrows
Whose goal
for
was that?
A-Cash.
That was, yeah.
A-Cat said my parents from Diego Martin,
Yeah,
Trinidad.
thank responded to you.
Stop trying to cheat.
I ain't look. I ain't see that one.
Arima.
I ain't gonna hold you. I ain't see it.
Cliff said, "Damn, that make me miss my hair."
We're not using that one because
Why?
you cheated.
So don't
Cliff
use it. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
From
Whatever.
here to here. I mean,
He keep cheating.
cheater. Bro,
Here
said
you
Tom
go.
and Jerry
Yeah.
curl.
Whatever. I wasn't looking.
All right, cool.
All right. It's a good question.
Is it?
All right. Yeah.
I ain't see it. I don't know. Like.
Wait till you answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't get one, right?
No.
Okay,
No,
so 92 for you,
Oh my God, he
Damn.
and then 70 for you. But one solid 30 answer could
Yeah.
I know. I'm
put you
trying.
over.
One solid.
Shut your ass up.
Right.
He lost the math in his head just now. He was gonna say more shit. He's like one solid, but wait a minute, I need this much.
Well, you need like a number 5 answer and get your 8.
All right.
Yeah.
It's his question, right?
Yeah.
Advice for dealing with difficult times. I mean, it's hood fuse black nigga shit. But repeat. Don't say nothing. Advice for dealing with difficult times.
What? Like you be alright?
Are you? Is that your answer?
Hold up.
He said his name.
Yeah. Look. See. He said his
Come on
answer.
now, you gotta give me an answer.
5.
But does it have to
4.
be? Nah, because here's my
3.
thing. Here's my thing.
2.
You good?
Okay, that's the answer.
See how they forcing me into an answer?
Yo, what's your answer, bro?
Look at CJ. Yo, y'all can CJ like
Yeah.
right here. Just piercing
I got
my,
one. Come on, I got
piercing
one.
my
What's
head.
your answer? We give you extra time.
Of course, she could see.
He's cheating.
He's
No,
cheating
I
right now.
got
Hold up.
What's your
Hold
answer?
up. Hold up.
Answer.
What she did the last question? What?
You're locked in. What's your answer?
Why
One
you
more
didn't do that when she was doing that? Huh?
Yeah.
See what I gotta do with him?
I said my
Like
answer.
that? You stole
Hold on,
it
no,
still.
not yet. Last chance.
Stop
Go.
yelling at
I don't
What's
want
the
to got
answer?
too much time.
Right.
That's it. 5, 4, 3.
Hold your head.
Hold your head.
That's
Keep
not
your head
even a
up.
fucking answer, bro.
Keep your head up.
Okay, that's number 2.
Keep your head up.
29 points.
Put that 29 there. Put
That's
that
number
29
2.
there.
That's
Put that 29
wild.
there. Put that 29 on that paper.
That's wild. That's
She's
one
like
away.
ASAP, like it's
Time
gonna run
out.
away.
Keep your head up.
How
Hold
many,
on.
How
Hold
many
on.
episodes of Hood
29.
Feud has she played, bro?
Hey.
I'm brand new, bro. They're doing me crazy. I was
Keep your
right.
head up with number 2.
What's
Number 1 is what doesn't kill you make you stronger. How you missed that?
Oh, fuck. I didn't even think about
Because
that.
that's
You missed
literally
that,
where
dog.
my head was at, bro.
What about what's the next one?
Come on, dog.
Number 3, what's number
You
3?
mad at yourself right now.
How many was 20?
You know you was supposed to get that nigga shit.
Ain't gonna hold
That's
you.
nigga shit.
Ain't gonna
You
hold
over here with your little bars and I can rap.
Well.
Yo.
Let go and let God is another good one.
Keep your head up. Yep, that's what I said.
Hold on,
Said
number
keep your
3
head
is-
up.
Oh, number 3.
Number 3, stay strong.
Oh, that was.
Number 4, trouble don't last always.
No, I know
Number
that.
5, this shoe shall pass.
How many points I got?
So
Enough to win, I'm sure.
Maldoni said
Enough
it is
to
what
win.
it is.
It is what it is. Good
Oh,
one.
it is what it is.
Koza said keep your head up. Sherman said it be all right, pray child.
Okay.
A-Cat said more health, more wealth.
Okay.
Sherman said let go and let God. And then said Tupac, keep your head up.
Keep your head up.
How much points I got? I won.
99.
Damn.
That's why I
Right
said
there,
the
you got
30. I
one
just
more
told you the 30. If you
got
got
one
30,
more
then solid.
Damn. It's not looking good,
Y'all
Playboy.
watching me get cheated. In
Yeah.
real time.
99.
It's my turn to pick the card.
Yes, it
It's
is.
the last card of
This
the
is
night.
I'm a shuffle.
Of course
I'm a
it
shuffle or
is.
not.
Shuffle,
Of course it
It's
is.
not looking good, bruv.
And now.
No, bruv, no.
No, 99. That's it.
Give
This
it a
should
little
be the
shuffle.
last card right here, yeah?
I'm 1 point away. and it's
Damn,
all
son.
It's the last
You better
card,
hope
bro.
she get nothing. She can't get nothing.
Unless y'all both fail miserably, then it's not the last card.
Crazy. So now, if I get it right,
Oh, sorry.
Come on, sis, do your thing.
My bad.
Ooh, oh, knock all the cards.
oh my god.
Hold on.
That ain't
hold
it,
on.
Ty. That ain't
She's
it.
holding the card towards me. She's
Yep,
not
yep.
cheating.
Yep,
You
yep,
know it,
y'all
bro,
is
of
super
course.
drunk. Yep.
Hold this down. Face down, please.
Yep. Let me hold on to that.
Let me just get the cards in
That was
order.
a good one, I think.
Let me just go get it.
Leave that there.
I don't like him reading that because they got that telekinetic.
They got
narrative
telekinesis?
shit going. Like, yeah, babe, I saw it. You
Move,
saw
make
it
sure you move
too.
chat for the next
He
one.
said you
Like,
saw
yeah,
it
I
too.
saw it. I saw it.
Damn, CJ, why they picking on your wife?
Hey, why are you picking on me?
Hey, Cash said, "Big sis, stay winning." How many times have you played?
Oh my god! Oh my god!
It's all right. I'm being lined
Niggas
up.
is
I know.
blowing
I
it
know.
up right
I
now.
Oh
know.
my god! What's
I
the
know.
question?
Are you
Ooh,
being
it's a good one.
hustled?
Whose question is
I'm
it?
being
Mine.
hustled, bro.
It's her
My
question.
question. Don't answer.
This is a good one right here.
Yeah, I read it.
This is a good one.
Yeah, I think she gonna get this.
Yeah, I think she gotta get something on this list.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready.
Cooked, nigga.
But I'm not gonna hold you. You can still get the number one answer.
Exactly.
Be lit.
Exactly.
Excuse me. Who star you on?
Oh wow.
The side that
Yeah.
the side that don't get me staying on this couch.
Which is my side?
Here goes the question.
All right.
See? Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Oh my god!
He got blackity black.
Oh
He went to
my
the Bible.
God. I'm ready.
And always remember, my brother, one fish, two fish.
Red fish, blue fish.
Mm-hmm.
Knick knack,
Paddywhack, give a dog a bone.
2000, 00, oops, out of time. My bacon smelling fine.
Damn.
Only black people know
Only
that.
black people.
Only black people will know that.
That's a staple.
Clock.
All right, here we go.
Got it.
This might be the last question of the night, people. Name a significant cultural celebration for African Americans.
We just did that.
No.
No.
Say it again.
That was the festivals
So
and
the
stuff.
festival.
Oh.
Name a significant cultural celebration for African Americans. Ooh, yeah, stressed out.
That's her answer?
That's her.
All right, so I'll wait for her to answer. See, I'm being polite.
It's quiet as I've heard you all day.
It's
But
a,
African
absolutely.
I'm going with Labor Day.
Because I'm coming for the
You going with Labor Day?
She said
I don't
W.
know.
She said Labor Day. I say Kwanzaa.
See, I'm not even thinking that. You said
16,
Kwanzaa.
16 points.
Kwanzaa.
Oh, I'm not even thinking that. Fuck this game.
Black celebration.
Now it's fuck this
wife.
game.
Black celebration. Black celebration wife.
I don't even think.
Kwanzaa.
She's not even on the list.
Is the game over?
The game is over because her answer. No, ain't no wait. Ain't no wait. You're not about to switch your answer.
He's not quite.
No, yeah, he got it.
Switch.
He got it.
Was the answer on?
Hit me with the
Damn.
switcheroonie.
Kwanzaa was
I got so
16.
confused with the other question. I couldn't even
Number
separate
one.
the two.
Yep.
I couldn't even separate the
Flip
two.
this whole
Yes,
shit.
I'm thinking about the other
Number
question.
one.
It was kind of similar.
Number
Right,
one
so I'm
was
thinking about
number
the-
one was
I bent one
Juneteenth.
of the cards.
Number one is Juneteenth.
Number
All
two,
right.
number
All right.
two was
Federal
Kwanzaa.
holiday.
Number three, Martin Luther King Day.
MLK. That's them all.
Why
Number
didn't you just
four.
put holiday then? If I
Shout out to
put holiday, I would have said it.
Number
That shit's a
four,
celebration.
You
Black
gotta pay
History Month.
attention. You know what I mean? I wasn't gonna
And
try to
number-
help you.
hold on, wait a minute.
I
Number
knew-
five, Harlem Renaissance Festival. That
All right.
one I'm not too forward to.
I ain't mad at that. I ain't mad at that.
All right, so
He got that.
I wasn't about to help you because y'all was
So let-
already.
See,
Let
put
me
Labor
read-
Day. Look, Labor Day, Juneteenth,
Yeah.
Kwanzaa, and this professional. We got commercial breaks.
Kwanzaa calls us at ACAST Black History Month. That was only said MLK Day. And then
It's
Sherwin
just
just
tomorrow.
shouted all of them out.
It's a shame. MLK is the mom.
Yep, MLK Day is tomorrow. Oh, yeah.
Ah!
By the way, make sure y'all celebrate. He had his dream, and that dream definitely came true. Stay your ass home from work.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Stay your black ass
Felt
home
that.
from work.
Unless you feel like you're going to get double time.
Look, with all the drinks
Alright,
I've been
I get it.
drinking,
What did
I'm
Cammy just
definitely
say?
staying my ass home.
Cammy
from work.
player.
Guys,
Alright,
distract
next
them to buy time so we can brainstorm a way
Right,
to
'cause I
save
ain't get to
Monet.
think. He was thinking,
Trying
man,
to
no.
save Monet.
Cam said, guys, distract him to buy time so he can brainstorm a way to save Monet from his horrible answer with
Yes.
the bogus explanation.
Also,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
confused
You got a
with the
game,
question.
CJ?
Yeah.
Because I do have a fusion, but if you got something,
Yeah, I
go on
got
into that. So,
two. I got two. Killer Kano, yeah.
give us a real be right back.
Drop a bomb for Killer Kano. Why
Give
you
us a
gotta
real
be
be right back.
Okay.
What up, Kano?
At
Cool.
your leisure.
Okay. I mean, I didn't need to, but if you need, okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll be right back, Chad. We're gonna get things situated with this game number 2. Well, this will be game number 3.
Number 3.
Yeah.
And again, I guess to be right
They
here.
trying to cheat
Yes.
me
Kill the
so
moment.
bad, yo.
Give us a second.
Look, if it goes,
The engineer will be right
if it
back.
goes to commercial, please.
Yes. Yeah. Commercial. We're going to
He'll be
commercial right now.
alright.
Check it out.
He'll
We'll be
alright.
right back.
He'll be alright.
Yo, the Sunday night we hit the screen. Golden Crush goes under the gaming king. CJ, the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town. Welcome to the game lounge. Welcome to the game lounge. Where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden Crust and CJ in the mix. Dropping heat hotter than a joystick fix. Mr. Roll with Ash Ketchum, the OG squad. Now CJ brings the fire, no facade. Word game sharper than a ninja's blade. Every Sunday we got the arcade made. From Twitch to the globe we taking flight. Brooklyn roots, though we shine worldwide. Press start if you're ready to vibe. The Game Lounge crew keeping it live. Gather round, don't hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, don't hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Gather round, don't hit pause. For the gamers we the cause. Cheat codes, now we play raw. Sunday night we hit the screen. Golden Crush, through the gaming king. CJ, the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town. Welcome to the game lounge. Welcome to the game lounge. Where the players hang and the beats pound. Golden Crust and CJ in the...
That one more time. Yep, there we go. Appreciate
you.
It was on, but you
Oh, I ain't know.
Yeah, it's all good, bro. Don't worry
I was
about
ready
it.
to slap some shit.
Nah, you want to flip the table and everything.
Hell yeah.
We'll flip everything. We ain't gonna have no equipment by the time he leaves. We're gonna
Damn
buy
right.
all new shit by the time Tyree leaves. And then can we send you the insurance bill, Mo? If this guy flips the table and stuff. I mean,
Send it to who? I'm just here for moral support.
He said, "I am the designated driver. I am not here to pay no one's bill. I'm not."
Yo, Ty, we saw you on that stream drinking
Oh, my
crazy,
God.
bro.
All right, so we are getting situated into our next game. This one is called Figure It the Fuck Out.
Okay.
You was here for the other Figure It the Fuck Out, so I don't really got to explain it, but for those who doesn't know, pretty much you're going to see a picture or you're going to see like a puzzle, and you pretty much got to just guess it. Some crazy shit up there, by the way.
All right.
It's going to piss you off. Some of the shit might piss you off, but it ain't my fault if it pisses you off. You're not allowed to flip the table if it pisses you off.
All right. I was already looking at what to flip.
Yeah. All right. Mr. 200 himself, and then Melanated Monet, hey. And then myself, yes indeed. Game Lounge is affiliated with Art Club, Bridge Crew, Made Mafia, and yours truly, as well as Club 6. I didn't put Club 6 up there just now, but no worries. Club 6 is still a vibe. And, of course, all of you guys are a vibe. We appreciate y'all coming every Sunday, so thank you for rocking with us every single Sunday. Now, let's play another round of Figure It the Fuck Out. Guess the riddle and the pick. Simple as that.
Okay.
Figure it the fuck out.
PQRTUK. PQRTUK. PQRTUK.
Says not your fault if it pisses off and I'm pissed off.
PQRT. I don't know.
Sherwin, I appreciate you. Say, yo, that Game Lounge crew theme song is mega lit from your pal, United Nations Ambassador, Sherwin XL. Gotta go, but keep up the incredible work, everyone. Mo Black, talk to you soon, my brother. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Sherwin,
we appreciate you, Sherwin. Pop on back in when you get some time. So figure it the fuck out, everybody. Figure it the fuck out.
PQRTUK.
Yep.
I don't know what the fuck that is.
PQRTU.
Mm-hmm. So you see, obviously, you see a picture of the alphabet, and you see a picture of a boy, a super boy with a cape. The arrow's pointing at the cape.
Yep. Oh, did you need to get back in?
Huh? Hold on 1 second, guys. I think the thing is pinging out. Hold on.
Yo, the Sunday night we hit the screen. Golden Crush, through the gaming king. CJ, the DJ spinning like a dream. Brooklyn vibes to the world of themes. Pixel warriors gather round. Controllers clicking, that's the sound. Using games to break it down. From the boroughs to the global town.
I'm trying not to be. I'm not trying not to be too belligerent on this.
So, chat, as you guys can see, like I said, it's pretty much a picture of the alphabet, and then you see a picture of like a super boy. And the arrow's pointing at his cape. Hence, I said the word super boy.
I don't know.
Yeah, you got me fucked up.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see if chat got. Let's see what chat got to say about it. Dirty Dan says escape.
Ah.
Okay.
Escape.
Sherman says, no doubt will do. Peace. Okay.
What the f-
Yeah,
How you
Sherman had to
escape?
think about it. He said escape. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's see what it is. Let's see what it is. The answer is, like Dirty Dan said, no escape.
Wow.
What is happening?
Because there's no S on the thing. An S is missing. So
No
there's
S.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, fuck this. I'm just not gonna be a part of this bullshit.
No,
to make me
there's
feel
no
some type of
S.
way.
Right.
Yeah, you're not
And
gonna
he's
make
wearing
me
the
feel
cape.
dirt today.
No escape.
Wow, Dirty Dan, shout out for you for getting that one.
Yeah,
Yo,
fact.
that ass though.
Drop a bomb for
Like
Dirty Dan,
kudos
y'all.
to you. Fuck this picture though.
Right, because that's crazy. I'll be back here
Shout out to
thinking
Dirty
all
Dan
types
for
of
that
stuff.
one. That was a
Word.
crazy
He
pull.
said PQYT UK. The fuck?
Yeah, I'm like, why they highlighted that?
Me repeat. Repeat after me.
Repeat after me.
Yep.
Yup, that's exactly what it is.
That's
Yup,
what that is.
Oh,
Yup.
Damn.
she got it.
You got that shit so fast, I thought you were still trying to figure it out.
Repeat after me is amazing.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to
Repeat
cook
after
that.
me.
His brain is
Yes.
fried right
Yeah.
now. Yo,
Tequila.
You know, I'm like,
Do
Figure it the fuck out.
what the do
One foot out the door.
Oh wow. 1 foot in the door.
Oh.
1 foot in the door. Because 1 foot is in the word
Do
door.
one.
Yeah, that's 1
I'll
foot
gi-
in the door.
I'll give you
Yeah,
that.
1 foot in the door.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
There
Let's
you
see
go.
if chat got it. Dirty Dan said, "Oh shit, I was a little off though." Nah, Dirty Dan,
No,
you
you
got
had
that.
that.
You
He's
got
in bars. She's
that.
dropping
She dropping
bars.
for
Talking
sure,
about
for
you.
sure.
1 foot in the
Yeah,
door.
1 foot in the door.
1 foot in the door. Okay. 1 foot in the door. Right, let's go. Let's go. You was speaking when I was doing
I'm
this?
over.
She was.
I'm just not living right
She was.
now.
So stop putting it out there.
She was laying right next to
Higher
you. while you
learning.
was putting it
All
in.
right.
Of course it is.
Figure it the fuck
Of
out.
Higher
course,
learning.
of course it is.
Higher learning.
Of
God
course.
Damn.
Of course.
Higher learning?
Yeah. I say
Okay.
that too.
We all gonna go to higher learning?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see if it's right.
Let's give Chad a chance to figure it out.
Higher learning though? Wait a
Because
minute.
it's
Yes.
going higher. The word learning is going higher. It's going up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please be right.
All right. So we all said higher learning. Let's go. Let's just get on into it. I mean, chat there, so they may say higher learning too, right? Answer is learning curve.
Oh, wow.
It is curved.
It is curved.
I'm
And
like
it is
higher
learning.
learning.
Hey, yo.
Learning is curved.
Yo.
So it's gonna work. You know what?
Oh, wait a minute now.
Xbox
Xbox
360.
360.
Xbox 360.
Yeah,
Yup.
Xbox
Xbox 360. That was a good one too. Damn, she on fire back there.
That's pretty simple. I just let it keep
That was
going.
kinda easy. That was kind of easy.
Xbox 360, y'all. There it is. There it is.
Generations of consoles, B.
Mm-hmm.
You either like it or you're wrong.
All right.
Bra, pig, Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yup.
Abraham.
Yup.
Abraham.
That's a good one. Yup.
Abraham
Yup.
My
Lincoln.
Yup.
out here cooking
Yup.
oxtail.
Yup. Yup.
Right.
It's working for you. It's
I got
working
oxtail
for
in
you.
my fridge. I'm gonna eat that.
Braham Lincoln.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
It's working for you, bro. It's working for you.
Shout out to the oxtail in my fridge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last one, y'all, for this one right here.
What 4-letter word
So-
will you get if you follow the directions in these 3 words?
Wait, you gonna
Right,
read it?
center.
Sorry.
So she already
I
read
gotta
it.
Read it out loud. I gotta read it to understand.
Okay, so she read it. So I'm gonna read it again. It says, "What 4-letter word will you get if you
It's
follow
plain,
the
it's plain.
directions?" I know. In these 3 words: right, recenter, cleft.
Right, left, right, center, left. Wait.
So it's a 4-letter word you'll get if you follow the directions in these 3 words.
Fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
What?
Look at the 3 words. Obviously, the 3 words are here. There's a 4-letter word you'll get.
If you follow the direction of the 3 words.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, let me get it.
Yo, man, what the fuck, bro?
Right,
Like,
right.
I told you
Right.
it's gonna piss you the
That
hell
shit
off.
is getting me mad.
yo, dead ass. Like,
What
ain't enough protein for this shit.
in these 3 words. Move, babe. Move the chat. What
Wreck.
you doing?
Wreck?
What four-letter
Four-letter
word
word.
would you get if you follow direction?
I just gave y'all a few.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get this shit for nothing.
Nah, I don't got this at all.
Yeah.
All right.
I ain't gonna
Cracking your head. Let's see what chat got to say.
The fuck is this?
Baldoni says wreck.
And crew.
Dirty Dan says crew. Okay. Dirty Dance's got him.
Oh, it is true.
That was some real gaming shit. So
Crew?
let's see what the answer
The
is.
C from Cleft at the if you're
Answer is
it's crew.
crew.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you follow the directions and put C,
Oh my god.
Yeah, man. Nobody
Left.
like
you
word
put
problems.
R-E in the center problem in the
It's not
center
like
and
school
W
shit.
on the right. It will spell
Oh, wow. Oh, who got that?
They ain't come here to take the fucking
Dirty Dan.
English regions.
Drop a bomb.
Yeah.
for Dirty
He
Dan.
said the English region is crazy.
Great.
That's crazy.
So obviously the letters that are highlighted right there is what spells it.
Because you go to the right. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
W
now.
goes to the right.
Now,
R
who's the
E
next
to
one?
the
You said you
center.
had a fusion. I want to see the fusion game.
Right. So
You want
that's
to see the
that.
fusion game? Okay.
I got one more other before the fusion game.
This game
I
hurts.
got
Oh, you
one
got another
more.
one.
This game is painful
Very
Yeah, that
painful.
was- I'm scared of this next one you did.
because it's like, what?
Right. Who thinks of that?
This is a new game actually.
What's this?
Oh.
So I'm gonna let the whole thing play out, and then we're gonna get to that. But it's gonna be a new game. It's not gonna be a game that we play like, you know, who the fuck is that or what the fuck is that. It'll be something different. All right. So as you go through the pictures, it's obviously us, which is cool as shit.
Right.
I'm on the top of the truck. I miss my Bonnie.
No, he said I missed my body.
Yeah, I gotta get my Bonnie back. Game Lounge affiliated with Art Club, Bridge Crew. Club 6 is actually there. Made Mafia as well.
Club
And
6, yes, sir.
Yours truly, and all of you guys, once again, we appreciate y'all every Sunday. Right? So, moving into the new game. The new game is called What's That Noise? Listen to the sound and guess the name.
Okay.
Cool?
Okay. I got no idea what this is.
Son,
This is we pulling out the weird shit.
I got no idea what the fuck that is.
Right. What is
See?
that?
See,
Wow,
Mo?
wow.
What is that?
And then when I'm
Confusing.
like, yeah, I'll
That's
flip
what
a
the fuck
table.
it is.
What is that?
Yep.
At this point,
I'll play it back.
Please?
I'll play it back.
Kirby?
no.
Kirby? Mm.
I got no idea what the
Me
fuck
either.
that is.
All right.
What's the answer?
So let's find out what the answer is since somebody in your... Well, let me see what chat got to say about it. Let me see what chat got to say.
Somebody in the chat like, yeah, I was just watching this yesterday.
FF7?
FF7?
Nah.
Final
Nah.
Fantasy 7,
It's
Papa
definitely not
said.
7.
Mm. Okay.
What's the answer?
Let's see.
I said yes. I wasn't gonna get that.
What the fuck is that?
What even is that?
Yeah, I don't know
It-
what Casper.
It's a cartoon.
Oh,
I don't know that.
that wasn't it.
No idea.
That's the next one.
It just sound
What
like
is that?
it sound like when
It's
Michael
something we
Knight
watch?
gets into.
This
the
is
car.
actually... I'll give you a hint. This is a show. So it's a Nickelodeon show.
I don't know Nickelodeon shit like that.
See, I'm
Danny
already as a disadvantage. I don't really watch. a lot
Danny
of
Phantom?
Nickelodeon.
That's Casper. You gotta do old
This is old cartoons. So you said Danny Phantom. So I'm going to give it to you.
Was it Danny Phantom?
Oh shit!
Oh,
it's
wow.
Danny Phantom.
That was a good fucking guess.
The
What did
fuck?
chat say?
I'm not even watching.
Let's see. Let's see what chat said just now, real quick. Koza
Yeah,
said Danny
Danny
Phantom
Phantom.
intro.
Okay.
I think it's Tom Coulson.
And Papa said I'm with
He's like, that's my
Coulson.
shit.
What's this next one?
All right, so here's the next one, y'all. Here's the next one.
Oh, Kim
Kim
Possible.
Possible.
It's not
Kim
even.
Possible.
Shorty loved that fucking show.
Yeah, Kim
I wouldn't
Possible.
even have known that.
You know, I knew it was Kim Possible.
I didn't even know
I
that.
did.
That's Kim
She had the
Nola.
Kim Possible.
I'm sitting here with my
When they
eyes
hit her
closed,
up,
trying to
she was
really
texting
tune
her
in
phone.
to whatever the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right.
All right, so here's the next one, y'all. And Koza got Kim Possible again, yeah.
Call of Duty. Call
What?
of Duty home screen. Black Ops 1.
God damn.
Cannon
What?
Toten.
God damn.
If she's right, I'm
leaving.
Yep, them zombies got it.
God
Wow.
That's my
Let's
shit.
go.
damn.
That's it.
Wow.
Chat. Good night.
He's gone. He's gone.
He's
It
out of
was
here.
the
That's
level
my-
of certainty with
That was
it.
my game.
No, Call of Duty, Black Ops, Low Screen,
Yup.
video.
First stage.
Yeah.
Directed by Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
They like, Pardon?
Wow.
That's my shit right there.
How you compete with that?
You can't.
That's my game.
You can't. But that is her favorite game, though. That is
I
her
go
favorite
hard
game.
in
You just gotta hold
You
on.
made this game, right?
I did.
Of course he did.
Oh my
You see what I'm saying?
But I didn't make this for her to get.
Mo,
Six
see what I'm
degrees of
saying?
cheaterations. Huh?
Yes.
That's my favorite game. Chat had that?
Yo, chat, I'm trying to tell y'all something.
I know
Y'all
that
not
game.
hearing
No,
me.
I'm asleep.
And I don't like it when I be trying to say something and nobody's hearing me
Okay.
while I'm saying
Here's
it.
the next one. Here's the
Yeah,
next one.
yeah, of course.
She's not gonna get this one.
Sure,
How
she's
you know
not.
that? Don't do it.
You
Don't
should
do
pay.
it.
You should pay attention.
All right, I'm paying attention.
I know
Sonic.
that.
Of course, Sonic.
I know
Freaking
that.
no.
That's not
Okay.
That's Sonic. That's Sonic. That's Sonic.
Hydro fucking.
That's
Okay,
Sonic.
so if it's Sonic, we're very confident it's Sonic, right? 'Cause
Yes.
It's like a Sonic board.
Yes.
What? Sonic
Hydro.
board?
The Hydro freaking.
What is that actual track has a name?
Something so-
Oh
Damn
my
it,
God! Now you want specific tracks because she just gave like
crazy.
Jeff Goldblum on the fucking. Wow!
Okay, so it's Sonic.
Sonic, Hydro, whatever the.
I didn't
I
ask
don't
you what
remember
game from Sonic. I
No,
just said, what's the name of the
the,
song?
the stage, Hydro.
That's not-
Answer that.
that's-
She's calling you.
Don't do that.
I'm very
That's
important.
not even me.
I'm very important, okay?
Babe, give him half points.
Other than the game lounge, I'm a dad too.
Half points. Give him half points.
Okay, so we'll give you the point. It's actually
That's
Ice Cap. song.
Ice Cap.
Okay. I knew it was some kind of
Chat-
water.
Chat had that one.
Let's see. Did
From the
Chad-
moment I heard, I knew that was Sonic.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh no, Chad ain't got
Oh,
it.
they ain't get
Okay.
Sonic again.
I don't know
The
that.
end of the fucking egg stage, like it's the part of the
I say Mega Man.
No, that's Sonic again.
like
It's
that's
part of
Sonic again?
it's
You
part
say
of
Mega Man.
No, it's
You
it,
say Sonic.
when the
I'm not too
Sonic
sure
and
about that
Knuckles
one.
connection.
I run it back for you, GK. I run it back for you.
Run it back. So now I played Sonic 3 crazy.
I
This is
can't
when
catch
he's
that one.
destroying everything and the shit's coming apart and he's like that nigga, son. And
That guitar
I'ma
sounds
tell you
familiar
what.
though.
That guitar sound familiar, right?
Is that a Dreamcast game?
Sonic.
Nah,
No.
that
It's
was on
Sonic
Genesis.
3 with the
No.
Sonic
And then you
freaking.
had the Sonic and Knuckles cartridge that you could
Yeah,
put on
bro.
top of that joint.
I know what
Nah,
you're talking about. You put that shit on right on top of that shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
But
That
nah,
shit
that-
was revolutionary at the time.
This song never came from any of that stuff there.
Really?
What's
Yeah.
it supposed to have?
Sonic? No?
So answer is
The fuck?
No, that's
Is-
okay. That was an error.
Oh.
I was about to say.
That was definitely an
So
error.
what's the name of it?
So that is Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3
Oh, I was,
intro song.
I was
Mm.
over Budokai after a second.
Right. It's playing the game.
Son.
There you go. Okay, there you go. I copied it
Anybody in
twice.
chat got that?
Nope, no one in chat got that. No one in chat got that. Okay, last one, y'all. Last one. And we can go to the fusion.
Mm-hmm.
Shout
Go
out,
Fat Albert, yeah.
Shout out, Bert.
Hey, hey, hey.
That's definitely fat off her.
Yeah.
That's Rich Me.
This don't even
Rich
exist.
Me.
This don't even exist no more because Bill Cosby.
Great combo chat. Thank you for playing. Thank you for playing.
Yo, you know I don't agree with that.
With what?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's not that. He's like, I don't want no parts of that.
Yeah, we're gonna leave Bill alone.
No, F that, man.
Bill's good.
You don't notice how everything they say, oh yeah, we're deleting everything that they ever did? That they're great? Like anyone who's great?
Yes.
That especially the black people, if they're great and they did something great, oh yeah, we're deleting everything they did. So A Different World, freaking The Cosby Show, all the freaking Fat Albert, all the freaking great black programming that he made, we're removing it because he roofied a couple chicks. All right, cool, I get it, bro. I get it. Look, hey, Mo, you know me, bro. I'm not gonna hold my look, CJ. I'm not gonna hold my tongue. Cool, just like Dave Chappelle said, he grapes but he saves, right? He grapes but he saves, bro. So you telling me because he did a couple things that's questionable, we're gonna remove everything that he did that was good?
They should do that for R. Kelly either. R. Kelly got mad.
Right, I feel
R.
you.
Kelly got the most hits, and then all right, cool. Now with
Flying
Michael
Giselle, yeah, first time chat. Thank you for popping in. Drop a bomb for you.
Flying Gazelle, what up? So you telling me for Michael Jackson, right? Because there's an asterisk on his name. Right. They be trying to take him down crazy. So we're supposed to forget that he made Butterflies, bro?
Nope.
We're supposed to forget that he made Thriller, bro?
Nope.
How?
To be fair, Michael wasn't really.
More recent. Puffy, son. That man controlled the 90s. So you telling me I'm not supposed to remember any of that, bro?
Not remember it, but just hope.
I'm not supposed to vibe out to any of them songs.
I look at it like this: separate the artist from the person.
Right.
So
I think that's a lazy answer. I ain't gonna hold you.
What? Separate the artist from the person?
Yeah.
I separate the artist from the person because at the end of the day, yeah, you can be a shitty person.
The art was a completely separate thing.
Art is completely separate. So
right,
like you said with R. Kelly's situation, what he was doing with the whatever.
I just seen something,
but I was really trying not to get in this.
I ain't gonna hold you.
It played that all of his songs from "Step in the Name of Love" to all of that baby making music. That's all what people was growing up on. It's still gonna be a staple in the R&B industry.
I ain't gonna hold you. They just said that Andy Warhol graped Basquiat, and. Yeah, and a lot of the Basquiat stuff that he made was while he was on heroin from whatever the hell Andy Warhol was doing to him.
Wow. It's crazy work.
I'm just saying, bro, like, at what point do we say, yo, this dude was amazing even though he did this stuff?
Right.
Is it? This is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, not say everything, bro. Say everything. See, look.
Take my sexy ass in the corner. I feel like we can't just this is why I said you gotta separate the artist from the art is kind of like a lazy answer, is because sometimes the art is fueling the artist and is allowing the artist to then do whatever fuckery that the artist is doing. So you can't just say, yo, I'm gonna just separate the artist from the art, because if I'm still taking in the art, and that art is me taking in that art is putting in money or power into that artist, and then allowing that artist to then continue to do whatever fuckery that they're doing, then we are in fact enabling it. We are part of whatever that person is doing in order to fuck up people in the long run. Now let's say there's a situation where, like, I'm gonna use Puffy as an example because he's the most recent shit. But let's say, all right, now there's something where, like, if we're streaming Puff or we're watching his, we're listening to his music, whatever, and that money or them streams or whatever is not going into his pocket, it's going maybe to his kids, or maybe not his kids, but like to the victims or some shit like that. All right, cool, whatever.
Right. But we know it's not.
Yeah,
and
that's
where
I
feel
like us as a people. Like that, and again, I'm not trying to attack anybody or you or anyone. I say, like, I feel like it's a lazy answer, but that's why I feel like it's a lazy answer, because it's like, yo,
we as a society, we as a people, we have to do more.
You
It's
gotta hit
so
'em where it
easy.
hurts. I
Yeah,
listen
it's
to
so
their shit,
easy
I
to
get it.
just be like, well, you gotta separate the artist from the art when it's something that you enjoy and you want to keep enjoying it. So you put these caveats and these technicalities to keep enjoying it. Yo, prime example, right? My favorite game series of all time. Well, one of my favorite game series of all time, Monster Hunter. Right?
Okay.
I have literally tens of thousands of hours in the series. Right?
Okay.
At one point, Capcom was not bringing the games to the States for whatever dumbass reason. They thought there wasn't a huge draw for the game here, so they wasn't bringing it.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a Comic-Con one year. They had a panel. They was that's when that was right before they was bringing out Dragon's Dogma and shit.
Okay.
And I was like, yo, Dragon Dogma look a lot like Monster Hunter. WTF, my nigga, what's going on? And
Right.
like they give you the political ass answer, like, well, you know, if we see the draw for it over here, we'll bring it. All right, smooth. Fuck y'all niggas. I ain't buying them shits.
Right.
I'm boycotting all you niggas until I get the shit that I want.
Mm-hmm.
A couple years later, we was getting Monster Hunter games out here. Now, I'm not saying I'm solely responsible for that, but what I am saying is I believed in what I believed in so much that I took something that I loved because of my principles. It's so easy to just say, we just gotta separate that and that. And nah, you gotta stand on something, B. You have to stand on something. And I'm using a really light example of like fucking video games. These niggas is raping bitches. These niggas
I
is
totally
out
understand.
here raping people, son.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, whatever the term is that we supposed to use.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying? I feel we owe ourselves more.
Yeah.
That's just where I'm at. You can agree, you can disagree, and that's cool
got a
because
point.
we're all entitled to it. That's just my humble opinion on it.
No, I'm
You know what I'm
not.
saying?
So I'll say this: I'm not against what you're saying.
Mm.
I agree wholeheartedly that you're holding what you're doing is holding people accountable for their actions within their art as well, because it was most of the time it's influenced by such things.
Mm.
So I agree with you with that part. However, it's certain things that has to be a separate exception for, because we're all music people here, so we already know that some people have ghostwriters.
Mm-hmm.
So with people having ghostwriters, that means that song wasn't influenced by you.
No.
Right.
It was their song, but you just sang it or perform it better.
So wait, are you saying that essentially we're cutting the ghostwriter off?
Right. That's
Right. So
They're
if we're holding at that point, if to your terminology, how you are holding people accountable, those ghostwriters have to be held accountable as well, because you had to come up with that mindset in the sense to do in the song or influence the song to sound the way it is, but that person that has done the actions are singing those notes. So it's like basically writing a blueprint for somebody to do something. Here's this, build this. Here, this is the GPS map to go here. You basically just gave them that.
Now I can't go too deep into the weeds.
So that's what I said. I'm not saying I'm not against you.
I'm not a music guy like that. Like
right.
I tell jokes. Like I don't, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
like
I get you.
So that's why like I got no ghostwriters, but like you know what I'm saying. So I can't speak to that.
You gotta hit him where it hurt. You got to, cause you out here like Diddy. He became so powerful. He thought that nobody could touch his ass.
Dead ass.
So that's why I say in those aspects of it being like that, you don't know who.
What's happening?
do it.
Gotta be careful though with those songs. Copyrights.
My fault.
You just out here just.
It's a good song though.
Just playing grapist music. It's crazy.
Jesus Christ.
It's playing grapey music.
You're right. If you let me tell it out now on all digital platforms.
That's what you should be doing. He ain't raped nobody yet.
All right.
Yet it's crazy.
Yet it's crazy,
I
bro.
heard it.
I'm
when
like,
it
wait,
landed, bro.
are we talking about me?
Drop the ball for the fact.
I heard it when it landed.
It was crazy. Wait a minute. You got to be more careful. Got to be more careful.
My bad.
I'm sorry.
All right. Let's get into GK's game. This is Fusion. So basically, you're gonna see a picture of a fusion person. You're basically gonna guess who the two people or two things that are fused together.
Okay.
Cool. Let's jump right into it. So we have to guess this fusion. I don't know who this person is either, so I'm actually playing along.
The
fuck is that?
He got a gun on the head.
Like
So-
Craig Robinson.
So I'll say Carl Winslow and
Who the fuck?
trying to see who would fit the bill for the
sure, Carl Winslow.
presidential or librarian thing.
I'm telling you, one of them niggas is Craig Robinson.
There's a picture of a white family in the background.
That's rude.
So I'm assuming he's protecting someone.
What is that?
Crackers?
No, like he's protecting like someone of like the hierarchy presidential executive order.
You fuck. He got. Is that a donut or in his hand? The fuck?
It's a burger in his hand.
Word.
What the Who the fuck is that supposed to be?
It's actually a burger in his hand. No, you're right. I think it is a donut, like you said.
So like a bear claw or some shit.
Yeah. So definitely Carl Winslow.
I
But
feel
who
like
else?
I'm yo.
Dirty Dan, he gripping the shit out of that donut. He sure is.
Yeah,
I give up. I don't know.
If it was one of those custard, I forget what they're called.
Yeah,
it would have been
leaked out
oozing out right
yeah.
onto the shoes, right?
I don't know, man. I'm getting Craig Robinson from the top of the head, though. Pause. But yeah,
I'm going to say. Yeah, I'm just going to say Carl Winslow is one of them. I don't know who the other person is, so let's check. Uncle fucking Phil.
Didn't even look. Well, I mean, I was right with the Carl Winslow, but what the fuck y'all get Uncle Phil at?
You know what? Nah, I could see it because Uncle Phil's room was like that.
And that's
his office. No, it wasn't a courtroom. It was his room in the house.
It's and also the sweater. That makes sense.
Yeah, fuck the AI program that did that.
Seriously, they could do better than that. Made him bald.
Yeah, both of them got receding hairlines, and this dude in the AI thing got the a sharp hairline. Wait a minute, go.
Right? That's Craig Robinson's hairline.
His hairline is sharp right here, but everybody else got the receding and bald hairline.
Was it Uncle Phil Graves in the bed? What was that?
Eminem.
Or Machine Gun Kelly.
For sure. Eminem for sure.
No, Eminem for sure, though. I'm not.
Tommy from Force.
I say Eminem and Vanilla Ice.
Eminem and Wesker.
It makes sense.
I don't. Yeah.
Wesker sounds dope because of the silver hair.
Right.
Yeah, but they ain't gonna give him no Wesker.
But it's definitely
Vanilla
Eminem.
Ice. And Vanilla Ice.
And I say
Vanilla Ice had the colored hair in that time.
Yeah.
Eminem and Elvis, maybe?
Ah, the jacket.
Yeah.
Eminem.
Elvis.
Yeah.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog from Detroit.
And we not playing Elvis's music because he's a rapist.
Yes, he is.
Child rapist.
That's right.
See how that works?
Mm-hmm.
See how that works?
How do we get there again?
And he racist.
Right?
He a bunch of shit. He don't like us. Fuck that nigga.
So we're going with Eminem and
Time out. Sorry,
mm-hmm.
Not to give Elvis any credit, but they did speak on how he did put people like black people on,
mm-hmm.
where nobody was putting black people on because I guess
he was
feeding them the songs, right?
Yeah.
He was like, "Look, man, these guys wrote the song, so we're gonna let them go."
So we're going with Eminem and Elvis.
Yeah,
that's the take we're taking there.
That's
okay, I like your Elvis idea for the jacket.
Yeah,
I do.
That was a good pick. I ain't gonna hold you.
Oh,
let's go, bro.
The gray hair threw it off, but he never had gray hair.
Because Eminem's colored hair, that's why.
Right.
Okay.
Samus
Aran, and freaking
Shorty from
Horizon
Samus
Zero Dawn.
The suit is fire. Though.
Let's
that
combo shit is hard.
Let's just take a look at the whole picture itself. The suit is hard. Then you got the ruins in the back. Then you got this big ass mech back here. She's about to go and saber and slice up that shit. And I mean, this is like if Samus took her helmet off.
Yeah.
Like she's like half Zero Suit Samus. But like Pocahontas down here.
That joint go hard. I'm gonna hold you.
Super dope. Super dope. Samus and Aloy.
Shout out to Horizon. That game is hard.
Snoop and Wiz.
Yeah.
Snoop and Wiz Khalifa.
Yeah.
Snoop.
I could smell the weed in this picture.
Right,
That's a
you can
fact.
smell the
I'm
weed.
getting
That's a
contact
fact.
from this motherfucker, bitch.
You can smell the weed. Dog father.
I'm not gonna say Wiz though.
No.
Nah.
What do you think
Nah.
it is?
I don't think it's Snoop and Wiz. I think it's Snoop and like Kid Cudi or fucking Snoop and
New York. It's a New York hat there.
I ain't even factored the hat in. I ain't gonna hold you.
Snoop's not from New York.
Where's
so
Wiz from?
That's a good question. Is he from New York? If not Snoop and if not Wiz, who would you go with? You said Kid Cudi.
because it's like Snoop and somebody much like tamer than him. Right? Like, don't let the background fool you for what he's wearing and what's going on. Snoop and Jay-Z. That's my answer.
Snoop and Jay-Z for the New York hat.
Oh,
I like that idea.
Yeah.
The blazer.
It really made me
and then
laugh.
it's purple.
Mm-hmm.
For the Snoop color.
This dude looks like he
Snoop
got a
and
goofy
Jay-Z.
laugh. Yeah, it might be. It might be.
That's right. That's crazy. You got that.
Come on, man. Come
That
on,
was-
man.
That was good, bro.
Come
I give you
on,
that.
man.
I give you that. That was
Let's see what chat
I'm just
said.
happy to be here.
Cliff said Jay-Z and Snoop. Come on, man. BK Jeff, yeah. I gotta get up with you, Jeff. We gotta play some more
when y'all see me
Arc
meditating,
Raiders, bro.
When you see me meditating, you know it's real.
Phoenix
Rogue and fucking Phoenix, part of my language.
No, Rogue and Starfire.
Yeah, I think it's Rogue and Starfire, though. Yeah.
I say
Because
Rogue
the
and
outfit,
Starfire.
Yeah. I'll go with that too. Rogue and Starfire.
But that's fire though.
Yeah.
Rogue Fire.
That came together cool. Rogue Fire.
Rogue Fire.
I like that. That came together alright.
It did.
This right here with the hair coming off, the Rogue hair, to the Starfire look is mean. Rogue and Starfire. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Look at Lincoln Cloud. Is that Cloud?
Cloud?
Not Cloud.
Nah. Oh, that's the.
I see the hair, so it gave me Cloud.
Well, Lincoln's a natural blonde already.
Yeah, he is. Good point.
Who the fuck? I'm trying to get it off of the armor and whatever.
Right, the armor pieces. That's not Link and so okay. There's some spaceships back here.
Just a Mass Effect shit, maybe like Link and Commander Shepard.
Link and Luke.
I think it's that car in the back that really tells the truth about who the other half is. Like, we can see that it's Link, but that car in the back is kind of instrumental.
Yeah. I don't know. It's boggling my brain on the powers. Like, you see the powers in his hand, the energy come off his hand, and then around his feet. That armor, that set of armor is what? What would we consider that armor to be? I mean, we had Samus before, so I wouldn't say Samus again, but maybe.
Something about the cars, bro.
I agree.
Why do they have the blasters on the top?
Right. Some Back to the Future as DeLorean right here.
It made me think of what's that freaking game?
Halo? You was thinking Halo?
It might be.
Master Chief and Link?
But then the blue. Why blue? Mega Man.
Master Chief ain't had no powers
Mega
like
Man
that.
and Link.
Mega Man and Link?
Mega Man and Link.
I don't think Mega Man.
I think Mega Man.
You think Mega Man?
I'm probably wrong, but I'm going with Master
Chief
Shepard and Commander Shepard for Mass Effect and Link. I'm probably wrong though.
Let's see. Let's see what chat had to say. Let's check chat.
Link and Samus.
Lincoln Samus. Okay. Star. He said Star Road for the last one.
Yeah.
Lincoln Samus. Maybe. I said Samus was there before, so I didn't want to say Samus, but the shoulder pad gives Samus and then the energy power.
Mega Man with the blue fit.
Mega Man was whipping?
Nah, I ain't in no cards except Rush.
Genuinely asking. I ain't really play.
Let's see.
Captain Falcon?
Fucking
yeah,
Falcon.
I wasn't getting that.
You know
Cars,
what?
bro.
The cars, F-Zero.
But them cars had wheels, bro.
Yeah, and they didn't have no guns attached.
The F-Zero.
Them F-Zero cars didn't have no wheels. One of like hover cars or some shit.
They were.
Yeah, them shits in the background had wheels.
The F-Zero is crazy.
I'm calling the judge.
Yeah.
Captain Falcon for this?
Just offer the shoulder blade and maybe the chest
piece. The
formed.
chin hair, the way the hair is on his face.
Yeah, that wasn't enough. There wasn't enough Falcon in there.
And then the wings on the boots. Man. Because the wings on his helmet. Jesus Christ. Like, he ain't got no chin hair, is what I'm thinking about.
Following me trying to keep it clean shaven.
Yeah, right?
Dynamic and shit.
That was good, though. That was real good. Super dope. I'm still here. Just got housework to do. Appreciate you, M. Appreciate you.
You the best.
All right. So, let me just click over real quick and get ourselves into another game. I think we're done with the digital game. GK stepped away for a quick second, but you got more shit. Wife, you got any questions? No questions? Okay. Cool. That's fine. That is fine that you don't have any questions. But tell you what, I'll go grab that card thing over there. Let me try that.
If you pull Hood Feud out, I'm flipping everything.
Nah, not Hood Feud. Not Hood Feud.
Hood Feud, me and Hood Feud got a little bit of problem. A little bit. Just not a big problem. A tiny problem. Yeah, un poquito.
Just a little bit pissed you off, right?
Yeah.
Alright. We can do decades of trivia. And these going to be random ass questions. I just scraped the fuck out of my hand just now. That pissed me off. I want to bite my finger just now.
Nah, more than that last game pissed me off.
So we're going to do decades of trivia, chat. It's going to pretty much be questions from each, like, certain decades. And you're going to basically guess the answers of it. We'll keep points the best way we can. Alright. Each card has 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, and 2010s questions. Yeah, we wasn't born in the 80s like that, but we know a lot of 2000s, 2010 shit, right? Cool. Chat, y'all can play in too. Y'all can join in and play with us. Bet. Matter of fact, since you are our host for the day, our guest for the day, I'll let you pick a card. Come on, man. I need all that energy you had a minute ago. You tapped out now?
I got it.
It's over?
I got it.
You tapped out?
I got it. I just tried not to get mad at those games that we was playing.
He tapped out, chat. It's over for him.
What was in this cup?
I don't want what you have. You know how normally people be like, yo, I want what he's having. No, I don't.
Yo.
No, I don't.
No funny shit. I remember one time I went to a bar and I seen this lady drinking this drink, right? It was in a martini glass. I was like, yo, bartender, I thought I was being fly at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever she's having, let me get that. I got the same shit, son. When that shit hit my chest, bro, that shit punched me in my chest.
Damn.
I was like, what is this? He was like, it's a Manhattan. I was like,
Take me back to Brooklyn.
That is my least favorite of the martini glass drinks, bro. I'm not going to hold you. Or old fashioned, like.
I love old fashions actually.
That shit is rough.
I had old fashioned a couple days.
That shit is rough. I'd take it and pour it on the floor and like scrub with it.
I'm a whiskey guy. Right?
Since I'm letting you start,
Yeah,
I'll let you pick the year: 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s.
2000s.
2000s. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. In 2005, she became the first female chancellor of Germany.
9.
Wild ass questions. I'm sorry, bro.
What the fuck is that?
Yo, Mo.
9.
I think I got a tie. Just tie that shit to the fan and let me spit.
Wild ass questions, bro.
What?
That's
Chancellor of Germany? Yo,
how would I know that?
Right.
How the fuck would you know that? You would not know this bullshit here.
I was struggling paying rent in Brooklyn, bro. That's crazy.
Want to go another year?
Yeah.
You can do give me another year. 80s,
The
90s,
90s. 90s.
All right.
Look at this shit.
Mm-hmm.
This 90s teen drama series the answer to the other one was Angela Merkel.
Angela, I would have never got that.
So this 90s teen
Dawson's
drama
Creek.
series starred Claire Danes, Jared Leto, and Wilson Cruz.
Jared Leto and Wilson.
What is it?
Wasn't it?
Claire
what year
Danes?
was this?
90s.
In the 90s.
Claire Danes.
This 90s teen drama series
90210?
starred Claire Danes, Jared Leto, and Wilson
I
Cruz.
don't think Jared Leto was in 90210.
What is this?
What the fuck?
You sure it ain't Melrose Place? It might have been one of
My
those.
siblings used to watch Melrose Place. I don't remember Leto being on that bitch either. These are not nice questions.
No.
They're not nice questions at all.
At all.
It's wild ass questions.
This is like, you have to really be specific.
I feel like Jaden Smith in The Karate Kid right now.
It's
Pretty
called
hard holding
My
the chest.
My So-Called Life is the name of it.
Nobody watched that
It's
shit.
It's a shitty card.
I remember the ads for that shit. Like,
Hey.
you're gonna say, oh, who the fuck is watching this?
Right.
Wait, I'm
Shitty card.
I'm gonna use the bathroom, man.
Go for what? Give me that.
Get your dick out the camera.
Now,
man.
I want to see the replay of how I got up. You see how I got up right there?
Yeah, that's
Great. All right, so your question, what year you want to go for, wife? 80s, 90s, 2010s? Okay, 2010s. All right. Who hosts the goofy game show Hollywood Game Night? Who hosts the Hollywood game show? Who hosts the goofy game show Hollywood Game Night?
I don't know. Donnie Osmond? I don't know.
Donnie Osmond is crazy.
I don't know.
Jane Lynch.
This is stupid. I don't like this game. Boo, tomatoes.
Boo tomatoes this game.
Jane Lynch. So
Where did the GK go?
I don't know where he went just now, but we do the other game. Do the other one that you like, right? The Who Can Do It.
Oh.
So we're gonna do Who Can Do It because it's your favorite game.
No, it's not. But okay.
It's a better game for you.
It's not.
It's a better game for you.
It's not. Definitely not.
So, fuck the decades. Who can do it? Says do an impression of a judge.
Do an impression of the judge. I'm the judge though, because that's my card. You have to do an impression of me. We had that one before.
Says do an impression of the judge.
We had that one before.
Did we? God damn it! You're not making this You're not making this work easy for me, wife.
Ow! I'm not fucking with this dumb game. Don't play me for.
Mm.
You got that shitty games. You just is trash.
We left
The other one, lyrically correct.
and this would be a solid game for
Yeah.
Tyree, considering he's music.
All right, this is the finish the Miley Cyrus lyric. I hopped off the plane in the LAX.
I hopped off the plane in the LAX and I'm playing in my cardigan.
Nope.
Something. Help me, chat.
Fuck.
The Miley Cyrus
Like, I know
song.
the song,
I hopped
I
out
know
the
the
train
lyrics.
in the LAX and
And the Jay-Z song was on?
No,
that's the
song.
later part. Yeah.
See?
I hopped off the plane off the LAX.
Something cardigan.
With the dream in my cardigan.
Right.
That's what the answer was.
Got it.
Close, but you said cardigan, but the other one was wrong.
With the dream in my cardigan.
See, Foxy got to do his party in the USA.
Come on, get it, Mo. Cool.
Oh, fuck me, man.
That's crazy, right?
What is that?
I know I don't know. A game of Quidditch is about to start, but you forgot your broom. Find one. First one wins. I'm not finding a broom. Let's have back.
That's what I like this
I'm not running around Mandem Studio looking for a broom.
Right.
Yeah.
They want you to do physical things.
Nah, fuck that. My knees hurt. Let's. The fuck? I'm running.
Foxy Cat said party in the USA for sure, Foxy. It definitely was that, but we want to know the next set of lines for that. Let me see. Try to find a better one, a good one. Yeah. You know what? We did do a lot of these.
That's what I said. We did almost that whole day.
LOL.
Pretend you're a DJ pumping up the crowd.
Oh shit. That's what you want.
Ain't not that.
Oh fuck. We have to cut it.
Oh, okay. Cool. Too much. Yeah, he down for the count. He's down for the count. Okay. So I do one.
I take that W.
I
take that W.
So I'll tell you what, I do one more. I do, because I know you like Hood Feud. I know you like Hood Feud a lot.
Yeah, one more to close it out.
We do one more card of the Hood Feud. So you can talk your shit while you leave, right? So chat, before Tyree and Mo and us head on out of here, we're gonna do one more Hood Feud card, being that he won Hood Feud.
Close it out.
Close it out.
By chance.
By chance. But it was good. It was a good chance. Good chance, right?
You know what Vin Diesel said about winning,
1
bro?
point to go.
Family. All right, see? I ain't look.
Cool. All right, so here's the question. What does no cap mean?
I'm not lying.
No bullshit.
No lie.
No lie?
Yeah.
Bullshit. Not true.
Bullshit.
No, you're affirming the truth. You're reaffirming you're telling the truth. So no, you're not lying.
Reaffirming you're telling the truth.
Actually, you had that on that card.
Okay.
How new is this game?
Says, here goes. Telling the truth, no lies, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And that's 56 points, so you got 56
Damn.
points. Solid. No. You did win last time.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
It feels right.
Number two is being serious.
Right.
Dead ass.
Like dead ass.
I was gonna say, isn't that dead ass?
Yeah. 3 is no exaggeration.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No cap.
4 is honest talk.
No cap. Dead ass. Same shit.
Something kind of similar to what you were saying.
Same shit.
And 5 is straight facts.
Okay.
No cap. Oh,
Straight
yeah.
facts, my guy.
That's crazy how all that shit means the same.
Straight facts, my guy. Yeah,
Straight
all the
facts,
same
y'all.
shit.
Straight facts. Alrighty. So we're gonna wrap up, y'all. Tyree, we appreciate you, brother.
Hey.
Yes.
It's only
It was a pleasure.
W performance.
W performance.
Yo, thank you.
It's only right that we let you
Mo, I appreciate you, bro. You know what I mean?
it's only right that we let you lead us off before we get up out of here.
Yo, look, it was a pleasure having me. You know what I mean? It was a pleasure being here, honestly. I'd like to shout out my mom again, even though I'm sure she knows nothing about what's happening tonight.
Shout out to my mom. Shout out to all of y'all in the chat. You know, Tyree Brewery on all streaming platforms. TYREEBREARY on any digital streaming platform. I got music for days. You could listen to the old stuff, listen to the new stuff, whatever works, right? I feel like all the songs are good. The quality of the songs might not be where I need them to be for everything. But
right?
yeah, but we here. It's lit. You know what I mean?
I will say, if I may piggyback off of that, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not just saying this because it's my boy right here. This new project, if you let me tell it, is probably, not even probably, I think it's his best work thus far. If you listen to some of his older stuff, like CPT and stuff like that, you can really see, you can see the quality and the progress of his work grow. And it's not to say that they're bad songs, the older stuff by any means, they're not. There's some bangers in there. There's some bangers in CPT. There's some bangers in well, the whole album. For me, the whole album is a no skip. But you know what I'm saying? Check it out, man. Listen to it. It won't cost you nothing. And if you like it, spread it. If you don't, still spread it because somebody else might.
Show somebody like, yo, this guy is ass, bro, and then have them debate it. Like, I like that. That works for me.
That's a whole fact.
Yeah.
And I want to say this. I love your music. I think it's dope. You definitely got me as a follow.
Shit.
But for other people who are in chat as new follows or new fans, give them 3 words about yourself, describing yourself.
3 words, like 3 singular words?
Yeah.
Determination, perseverance, real nigga. I don't know.
I love it.
You know what I mean? Come on, bro. Real nigga. That's one word.
I love it.
That's one word.
All right.
You know what I mean? RN, word.
You know what I mean?
Registered nurse up in this shit, son. Like, come on.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mo, before we kick it out, you want to tell the chat about your experience here?
Oh man, this was fun, bro. This was fun. This was a good time. This was I laughed, I cried.
Right.
I was scared.
Yeah.
I felt a bevy of emotions.
I'm not gonna hold you from this angle. Being the designate, like no lie, and it's no disrespect in any way, but you said you're the designated driver, right?
Yes.
That is a great angle to be, because this fucking drink, whatever, yo, just understand, if you ever watch the stream and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna drink whatever the freaking guest is drinking, do not. Don't.
No. I didn't even drink it, so I wasn't.
Is not it.
He poured himself a cup of aggression.
Don't do it. It was like,
let me just take a sip of this.
Yeah, it wasn't Henny. It wasn't Henny like, yo, I think these niggas want to fight you. It was more like, you know what? Just chill out for a little bit. And I was like, Jesus, you're right. You know what I'm saying? First it's CJ, and then next thing you know, I turn around and I'm like, Jesus, you right, bro. You right. You know, so just drink responsibly. That's my thing, right? There we go. Yeah.
What?
Of course, W Streams had a good time, good competition, good music.
Yeah, good competition, my ass. Good
competition, my
ass.
Yeah.
So, GK's busy taking care of some things, so I'm just going to close out the show. But you guys already know me. I am CJ the DJ. It's an understatement to call this a podcast. It is a great show. It's a phenomenal show. We love you guys. Keep coming back here every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's only nothing but a good time at the Game Lounge. So, as Mr. 200 would say if he was here, it's me, Mr. 200, aka it's me.